Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Eerie International, episode 471. This week, my name is David from the United States.
I'm Andi from Germany.
And I'm Dave from the UK.
We are back to talk about a very UK movie this week. Edgar Wright's 2021 Last Night in Soho, a movie that, if you are a longtime listener of the show, will know that we've done once before. So I was talking to a friend a couple weeks ago and was like, yeah, we're doing an episode on a movie we've already done before, which, now that I think about it, is not the first time we've done this. I think it's at least the third. We did 2 Get Out episodes, or maybe it was us, and then we also have done The Guest multiple times.
Yeah, did The Guest a second time because Dave wasn't on the first episode. The first episode was an Adam Wingard, Simon Barrett episode where we talked about multiple movies. I think Austin was on that episode.
Yeah.
And then we did an episode with Dave only on The Guest, and Get Out we did twice because we had an episode on Get Out and then we had Theron on for a double feature episode on Get Out and us. So that's why we did that one a second time. Yeah.
And it's pretty much a guarantee that we'll do an episode on The Guest again, since it is sort of the patron saint of this podcast. But
we've been joking about it for years, and at some point we definitely will do it.
It's going to happen, yeah. The Last Night in Soho, the first time around, it was right at the beginning of my break from the show for about a year, and I had watched like the first 20 minutes of it. I think probably in retrospect at that moment in time, thinking like, I'm fine. Everything's fine, even though my marriage was ending. Like everything was about to change in my life. And then somewhere in that watch of the movie, I texted you guys and was like, I probably need to take a break from the show. I've got too much going on. So this has been a long time coming for me, this episode. And then we were supposed to record last week, and I fucked that up and forgot what day we were recording. So I've extended it by even one more week, my finally being able to watch this film. But we are here. We are ready to talk about it.
We will now repeat every episode that you were not on during that year.
I figured that's what we would do.
In order.
Yeah.
I was thinking
how we did them that time.
I was actually thinking we should probably redo the first 109 episodes of the show because we may never find them again.
Oh, yeah. Do a Taylor Swift thing. Just
re-record it. Yeah.
Just get our episodes back.
Yeah, it'd be amazing if we did eventually find them and then listen to the episodes and see just how close we got to them.
And if we do that, I absolutely think we should look up current events of each episode as they occurred and just try to do some riffing, do some real topical jokes of what was going on at the time. Probably depressingly more positive news back then.
Oh, I'm not sure about that. You remember how I was after Brexit?
Well, that's true. There was stuff going on. But cool. If this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. You don't need to know the lore behind this episode. We will just be talking about the movie like a normal episode, as always. But if it is your first time listening, welcome to the podcast. We're a horror show. We talk about all kinds of horror stuff, whether it's movies, video games, comics, books, albums, plays, musicals. If it's got a horror or spooky bent to it, we will dive in and take a look and discuss. We are on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can go follow us. I've noticed, much like I've never said the word president in front of Trump, as far as I can remember, I've also never called Twitter X, and I never fucking will. So we're on Twitter. And if you want to send us some longer form thoughts, feel free to do so, eerieinternational@gmail.com. I forgot to ask you guys, do we have any emails this week? I hope not, because I'm on a new computer and Gmail's not set up for our account.
No.
Okay, good. I lucked out. I'll have to figure that out later. I don't remember if I have the Eerie International Gmail password saved, but I might somewhere. We'll see. What else? I think that's pretty much it, right? Am I forgetting anything? I took a nice 2 weeks off, so I'm a little rusty.
That's about right. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm fairly certain both me and Andy both remember what the password is, so if you need it, one of us can probably give it to you.
Perfect. I've been Also sleeping better lately. I don't really know what it is that I've tapped into, but I'm not fighting it. I've just been allowing it to happen. Take it as it comes, as they say, and transcendental meditation. Maybe that's been the reason I've been sleeping better. But because of that, I slept in too late to get coffee. So we'll see how this morning goes on the podcast. I've not had my morning coffee. So may God be with us all, I guess, to be oddly religious. All right, let's get into what we've gotten into over the past couple of weeks. I will actually kick us off because I have almost nothing. As you guys know, as Andi and Dave know, last week was very rough week for me. My computer went down. I almost lost every single piece of lettering work I've done since 2012. And it was one thing after another. I had a monitor, but the cable wouldn't work. I had to go spend $65 at a Best Buy to get a new cable just so I could get to work. It was just a total nightmare. Personal life stuff, everything just kind of piled up at once. So I didn't get into a whole lot then. And then this week in the U.S., we had Thanksgiving and all that stuff. So I had multiple Thanksgiving things to go to. Yeah, it was pretty busy. Sorry, I was distracted because is what you're texting important, Dave? Did something happen?
No, it's fine. Don't worry.
Oh, okay.
You'll read it later and understand exactly what we were talking about.
Oh, the only message I saw in my notification said "fuck LOL," and I was like, "Oh fine. Shit, maybe they can't hear me."
No, you're good. You're good.
All right, cool. So yeah, I didn't get into a whole lot of anything. Any spare time I've had over the past couple weeks has mostly just been hanging out with my kid. So I did watch 2 Dragon Ball movies, which I won't go into almost at all, but just to say that I really enjoyed both of them. They were the 2, I believe, newest Dragon Ball movies. So Dragon Ball Super movies, the Broly one and the superhero one, and had a ton of fun with those. This whole journey with watching all this Dragon Ball stuff with Daniel has both been like a fun, father-son thing, but also has just cemented Akira Toriyama's body of work for me as one of the all-time greats. He already was one of my favorites, but especially these last 2 movies, he was super involved before he died. He was did the script and the character designs, and I believe the credit they used for anime, if I'm remembering correctly, is like scenario by, which I'm assuming is just the same, like an equivalent of story.
I would assume
for how we do in Hollywood, in America, but yeah, those were both awesome. And then other than that, the only thing I watched, and I will tread lightly here in case you guys have not watched it yet, but I did see the new batch of Stranger Things episodes. Did you guys happen to watch those?
I heard that they're feature length, so I haven't even attempted to look at them yet.
One of them is one of the new batches. The rest are about an hour. Hour and change. Yeah.
Oh, right. The reports were massively overestimating it then. No, I do need to. It's on the pile at the very top, along with the Mighty Nine season 1 that came out on Prime. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'll be getting to it. Don't worry. By this time next week, I think.
How about you, Andi?
I did not have the time yet, and as we will be on holiday when the actual finale will come out, I'm not even sure if we will attempt to watch these episodes before mid-January when everything is out. I don't know yet, so no, haven't seen anything yet.
I won't say anything. Overall, I really liked them. Thought they were a lot of fun. It's very crazy watching. I went back and looked up the premiere of the first season because this was one I did watch more or less when it came out, I think. And it came out 3 months before Daniel was born, and he's 9 now. So it's pretty crazy, just the span of time, and then also the tone, the budgets, the spectacle of it all, especially thinking back in season 1 where it's these kids running around and there's one Demogorgon, and that's like the huge sort of enemy of the show, and they're establishing all that. And then by the time we get to even season 4, things are just apocalyptic, and that's kind of how season 5 continues. So I had little small quibbles with the episode so far, but I mean, pretty much anything that would come up where I would be like, this doesn't really make sense, or have that kind of reaction, it very quickly I was like, who cares? It's not really that kind of show where you got to worry too much about like plot holes or logic or whatever else. And not that it's wildly illogical or anything like that, but I was talking with our friend Austin about it last night. Like, I think a lot of it is just that they are at the end and they have so much to do and so much to get done. So the energy and the momentum of the show is very propulsive, and it's kind of like one thing getting to the next thing, getting to the next thing. There's not, they've already done all the character building for the most part and development. So you're not really spending a ton of time on those sorts of things or those sorts of moments. There are some. There's one of my favorites, maybe of the whole series thus far. There's a series of interactions between Will and Robin that I liked a lot. It was fun. It's weird. I'm kind of torn with this release thing. Like, there's part of me that's like, this is really fun. It's an event, and like they're treating it in a big way of like, we've got these, and then Christmas Eve there's 3 more episodes, and then I think it's New Year's Eve or New Year's Day is the finale, and the finale is going to be like 2 hours long, and they've said they're releasing it in the theater. I don't know. They haven't released details on that yet, so I don't know if this is like a New York, LA, Chicago thing, or if it's going to be more widespread than that. But so there's part of me that's like, especially talking to other people that are fans of the show, and just like the hype around it feels very fun. I think kind of similar to how, like, when the Avengers, like Endgame and Infinity War came out, of just like everybody's talking about it and everybody's watching it, and there's that part of it. Then there's also the jaded part of me that remembers pre-streaming releases, and it's, for me at least, started with Breaking Bad, where they got to the point at the end where they were just like, we're gonna split every season into 2 parts and we're gonna really milk this thing. That's a little annoying, but at least with this, it's pretty close. We're not having to wait like 6 months in between chunks of episodes or anything. So it was cool. I really hope that I was thinking, like, man, if Netflix really wanted to, or the Duffer Brothers, whoever you want to put the responsibility on this for, if they really wanted to capitalize on the hype and get me excited even more than I already am, they would release that fucking stage play on Netflix, like a filmed. I'm sure they've filmed it, like, because there are elements in this chunk of episodes, not a ton, they're minor, but there are a couple times where they're like, they harken back to that. The stage play set in the 50s, and Joyce and Hopper and those characters are younger, and there's one scene that you see some of that, and then apparently there's a plot point that they haven't explained in the season yet, which I'm assuming they eventually will, because not everybody could go see the stage play. That is more fleshed out in the play. So I want to see the play. I've had no way of seeing it, and that, I think that would be awesome if they. But I could also see them being like, why make people not pay for it when we could have them, especially now, capitalizing on all the heat it's got. So anyway, but yeah, watch those episodes. I thought they were a lot of fun. There are a couple, again, I won't spoil anything, but there's a couple of moments that are shockingly violent, which the seasons have had those here and there, especially season 4. But yeah, there were a couple of kills in this season where I was like, holy shit, like, this is definitely beyond PG-13. It has gone into hard R territory. So, some crazy stuff. But that's it for me. So let me throw the ball over to Andi. What did you get up to?
Oh, 3 things. First, I finally watched the documentary Mike Mignola, Drawing Monsters, that I think came out a few years ago, although it doesn't really have a proper release in Germany. I was able to rent it on Vimeo. That's the only place that you can get it in Germany. It took me a while to find that. I might not even be on Vimeo for that long at this point. I don't know. Anyway, whatever. I watched it and enjoyed it. I mean, it's always fun seeing Mignola's art, and of course all the people involved with his work in the comics and the movies and everything. So if you have a chance to see it, and if you're interested in Mignola, his life, his art, his journey through comics and movies, it's definitely interesting. Seeing his brothers was fun. Them talking about their childhood and youth, and seeing pictures of them as children and young men, and that really gave some background to it. And I've seen a lot of videos and interviews with Mignola, and listen to podcasts, of course, and things like that. But still, there's still new things in this documentary, and so definitely recommend it. And I think, David, you contributed to the crowdfunding back then, I believe.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah, that was one
the disc.
Yeah, I have a postcard. I actually just found it the other day because I've been cleaning my office. I have a postcard from it that I made out to you and your wife, thanking you for sending me postcards over the years. Especially in the past few years when things were a lot rougher, and it's a exclusive postcard from that campaign. And in fact, on the back of it, I wrote a very short message to you guys, and then there are 2 signatures on the back, and I drew arrows to the signatures and was like, I have no idea who these people are. There's someone involved with making the movie. It wasn't.
You wrote that card 3 years ago, probably.
Yeah, I did. It was a long time ago. I started to tell you guys when I was in Germany what I wrote on the card, and I was like, nope, you know what? I'll still send it. So I have the card now. But yeah, I pledged to a higher tier on it at the time. So I got a bunch of swag with the documentary. I got a t-shirt and some prints and stuff like that. And yeah, I really liked the documentary. I haven't seen it since back then when I got the Blu-ray, but I remember really enjoying it. Thought it was really polished, and a lot of times, especially with comic book documentaries, the quality, which is okay. I think especially with documentaries, especially about comic book creators, like you're not expecting an expensive production. But my memory was this one was pretty polished, and I really liked one of my 2 biggest memories from it were pausing the movie and seeing all the stuff he had on his bookshelves. Liked that a lot. There's a few different shots where he's talking like showing off different books of like mythology and folklore and stuff that he pulls from. And then there's an anecdote in there that I was shocked by at the time because I've briefly talked about it here and there, but Steven Universe is one of my favorite animated series, maybe my favorite animated series, at least American, ever, and like a show that really resonated with me with the death of my mom and then also the birth of my son, and just a lot of sort of, and then I connected with Daniel about it later as he was growing up. And so Rebecca Sugar, the creator of Steven Universe, is in the documentary. So that surprised me enough where I was like, what the fuck's Rebecca Sugar doing in this? Because like their styles are pretty different. And then she has this like very awesome sort of touching story about how a key defining design element of Steven Universe's character comes directly from Mignola. And I think it was from Hellboy. And so I thought that was really cool. There were a lot of moments like that in the documentary with people talking about the influence and everything else. And Mignola is like I don't know him personally. I've met him and talked to him a couple of different times when I've gotten stuff signed, and he's always been consistent in that he's like, and in interviews is the same way, is where he's like kind of gruff, like kind of grumpy. Like I don't get the sense that he's a jerk. Like he seems, kind and nice to people. He was nice to me, but like I remember even when I showed him, now I have 2 Mignola tattoos, but at the time I only had one. I had a Hellboy tattoo on my arm, and I showed it to him, and I remember it was like, it almost freaked him out, where he was just like, oh, okay. Like, I guess if you want to do that, you could do that. So having a whole documentary to be able to kind of dig into his personality a little bit more and see more than just, surface level stuff. And not that it's like crazy deep, but yeah. Liked that one a lot. And if you are someone who liked that documentary and saw it, they're now kickstarting a new documentary about the Gilmore Girls, about as different as possible, but that same documentary crew. The only reason I know that is because I pledged to the first one, and so I get all the emails now for them trying to promote the next one. So yeah, glad you liked it. I thought it was cool too.
That's the double feature: Hellboy and Gilmore Girls.
And Gilmore Girls. Yeah.
I watched Gilmore Girls so much back then.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I had a lot of time on my hand. It was on every day. I oftentimes saw episodes twice because I rewatched the next day again. I couldn't swear that I've seen every single episode. I have seen none of the reboot thingy, the newer ones, but of the original series, I'm probably pretty close to having seen every single episode. And
holy shit,
I don't either.
I didn't know this, or I completely forgotten. That's crazy.
I think back then, I don't know if we already knew each other even, or if we talked about.
I too have seen a lot of the Gilmore Girls, and then we obviously know our friend Austin has seen all of it too. Yeah. All right, I guess this is the new show. Dave, start watching Gilmore Girls.
Fuck no. So it's never appealed to me, but I don't know. I don't know. Maybe
show.
I just, in fairness, outside of the fact that it's called The Gilmore Girls and it feels like it's like a sitcom-y type show, I don't know that much about it. So I don't know.
Sean Gunn is in it. That's
true.
where we saw Sean Gunn for the first time. Well,
Yep.
At least I did.
Me too.
I mean, that might be enough to get me through. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, I might give it a go.
Yeah, it would definitely be a show that I think it's probably. I think this phenomenon happens with a lot of people where if you haven't, like, I probably never would have watched it had my mom and sisters not started watching it and then just through osmosis, like I would. It was the same way for random movies for me. Sense and Sensibility was one of them growing up where like I've seen that movie so many times because my mom and sisters would watch it all the time. Gilmore Girls was the same way. But then once you actually see, so like, the, what's it called? Miss Maisel.
Oh yeah.
Like that show, like that's the same showrunner. So like there's a pedigree with the writing quality with her shows. Amy Sherman Palladino, that's her name. I couldn't remember it. I think that's what sucks people in. But yeah, it's like what's his name from Supernatural? Jared Padalecki, whatever. That was the first time I ever saw him on anything.
Melissa McCarthy is in it before.
Melissa McCarthy,
she was a big movie star.
What's his name from
Milo
Peter
Ventimiglia.
Petrelli from Heroes? Yeah, Milo Ventimiglia. Like all these guys that we know from other stuff now, they all kind of started there. So you would like it, I bet. It's not a sitcom. It's more of a of like a dramedy. I don't know. There's no laugh track. It's not like single camera stuff. So
I mean, I think it was Paul from RBR Weekly Wrestling Talk at the time would go on about it, how much he was enjoying it. And I don't know if he was doing it ironically or not. I don't know. Maybe
probably not. Yeah, probably not.
Okay,
it's got a legion of fans. So yeah. Anyway, back to you, Andi.
Yeah. Changing topics. I watched Weapons.
Hell yeah!
Oh damn. Okay.
It's a bit of a contrast.
Sure.
To the Gilmore Girls. Yeah. So we finally watched Weapons, probably the horror movie that everyone was talking about this year. Zach Cregger's follow-up to Barbarian. And I really enjoyed it. I thought it went on a little bit long. Could have been a little shorter for my liking. But I very much appreciated that it didn't feel derivative of anything, that it felt original. I know some people had problems with the ending. I didn't really. I thought the movie was very well made, well told. These kind of chapters from where everything is told from different perspectives of different characters, and so yeah, I really liked it. Again, a little long for my taste, but other than that, I would definitely recommend it. Probably everyone has seen it already.
You haven't seen it yet, right, Dave?
No, I've not had the chance yet.
I won't spoil anything. Yeah, no, that's awesome that you dug it. I thought the ending was great. The ending to me was maybe the highlight of the movie. I liked the rest of the movie, but the thing I liked the most about the alternating viewpoint things, like the Rashomon type effect, whatever you want to call it, is that it wasn't like, at least that I remember, there weren't like massive glaring contradictions. It wasn't like, this person's obviously lying about everything that happened. It was little stuff like where I really noticed it. I've only seen it once, but where I really remember noticing it was when Han Solo meets Silver Surfer in the bar, and immediately, like the first time around, she's like so excited to see him, and it's told from his perspective. And then when you see it from her perspective, she's way less enthused, and like her body language is a lot different. And like those are the things I really liked, where it was like, oh shit, okay, like there's differences, but they're subtle enough that you're like, okay, this is perception stuff, or it's how this person wished it would have gone a little bit more than what it actually did, or and it made it never makes it confusing. But I also think that you're right, and that I felt a little bit of that too. I think maybe because of the structure of the movie, where you're sort of like resetting back and seeing stuff, like it breaks up the pacing, but it also does make the movie kind of feel long because you start to see similar stuff. But anyway, yeah, excited for his Resident Evil movie. That'll be pretty crazy.
So the third thing, I rewatched The Descent. The Descent is a movie that I think on our very first episode 10 years ago, I said that that's one of the movies that everyone likes, but I don't. Um, Alongside The Conjuring and the, the Babadook and a couple other movies. So I finally rewatched The Descent. It's been over a decade since I saw this movie for the first time. I thought, let's give it another chance. I listened to an episode of Screen Drafts recently where they talked about monster movies, and The Descent came up, and they pretty much were all in agreement that The Descent is the best horror movie of the 2000s. It seems like the horror community in general thinks that it is at least among the best of the 2000s. I wasn't as annoyed as the first time around, but it still doesn't do much for me.
Man, I don't know what it is because I like it when you like movies, just like I like it when any of my friends like movies. But there is a joy I get when these situations happen where you're like, so this movie that I hated, I revisited it again. Enough times passed, wanted to give it a fair shot, and I still don't like it. Like, those are such great payoffs.
I mean, as I said, I wasn't as annoyed, so there is improvement.
No, there's a blurb. Yeah.
We decided we don't need to keep the disc, so I didn't like it that much, or at least I didn't. Bianca liked it, but and she had seen it before and already liked the movie, but I didn't that much. So anyway, that's my three things. Dave?
Well, tune in next week when I tell everyone what I thought of Deathgasm on a rewatch. That's not going to happen.
That'll be consistent. Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind.
That and Hunt for the Wilder People. It's a 10-year joke that keeps getting funnier. Right, so what did I watch this week? That's a very good question. Let me tell you. I started off before... Actually, I haven't watched much in the last week, but the week before, I did watch The Running Man, the 2025 Edgar Wright remake. I say remake. Is it really a remake? It's more like it's like a retelling
new
of
adaptation.
The book. Yeah, new adaptation. I know that you said, and I think I'm quoting you correctly here, David. You said that it was aggressively okay last week or the week before. I liked it a little more than that. I thought it was a pretty entertaining movie. I was convinced the entire time through the movie that McComb, the masked leader of this paramilitary hunting team, was going to turn out to be the head of the executive of the TV station. And
Josh Brolin's character.
Yeah, and I was not right about that, and I was kind of like, well, this is just a fucking disappointment. I won't go into too much detail, but I felt like they didn't set certain things up well enough that certain other reveals were impactful when they were made. But I did like the world that they set up and showed us through the film, the idea of new dollars and the fact that, $100 makes you a very rich person. Was a really interesting thing to look at, in this world where inflation is constantly making things more expensive, and the only time that we ever see that arrested is if a currency is reset or replaced with something else. And the little Easter egg of who was on the 100 new dollar bills was quite a funny one for me. I'm not going to say who it was, but I think people can probably guess. But it was funny. It was all right. I think the problem is I saw it over a week ago and my memory of it is fading. So I would say it's for me better than aggressively okay, but not like an outstanding movie. I thought it was a fun popcorn movie. It had some fun appearances by people like Michael Cera. Katie
that was my
O'Brien.
favorite part.
He was great.
Like that whole sequence.
The whole hot dog thing was brilliant. Like the fact that he immediately was just like, all right, fuck it. Look, it's an elephant in the room. I'm just going to ask you about it. And then the flip-flop that character does throughout the thing with his mother and everything, that was really fun. I like Katie O'Brien. I've not seen her in a lot of things outside of that particular Star Wars TV series that she was in. Was it the second season of Mandalorian, I think?
Mandalorian,
Yeah.
She was in that crime bodybuilding lesbian movie.
Yeah, which I never got around to watching.
Bleeding.
Love Lies Bleeding,
yes.
yeah. I think that was kind of her like big breakout moment, it seemed like.
I do need to watch that because I'm a big fan of muscle mummies. I'm not going to lie. Fuck it, why not? Ladies,
and you're of course not talking about the mummy from Halloween Havoc. No, which is what I interpreted as what I heard. Muscle mummies, Mame or whatever his name
mummies.
is.
There you go. I've said it correctly for our American listeners. But yeah, I think there's a lot to like about The Running Man. This version of it.
It's the Yate. Sorry, I messed up that reference.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. It's a fun popcorn movie. It's got some real kind of visual panache. I think Edgar Wright has not lost his touch for that. More of that later when we get into the main topic. Aggressively really good, I would say. All right. So there we go. And also I tried, and I might have my card revoked from the International Church of Campbell for this. I tried watching a movie that stars Bruce Campbell. It's called My Name is Bruce. It was made in 2007. I don't know if either of you guys have seen this movie.
Long time ago.
Okay.
I haven't, only because it's based off a book, right?
I do not know. I hope not.
I could be wrong. I remember I read If Chins Could Kill, which was his memoir about making early stuff like Evil Dead, and I loved that book. I mean, I was in high school, so it's been a long time since I've read it. And then his next book, or maybe his third book, was this like meta. I'm gonna write a memoir, but it's supposed to be funny and meta and slightly fiction, maybe more than slightly fictional. And I made it like 10 pages into that and was like, "Fuck this! I am not interested in this version of a memoir." And I thought that was maybe somehow connected to that movie, so I just avoided the movie.
So the basic concept of the movie is that Bruce Campbell plays Bruce Campbell in a world where he was in the Evil Dead. And he is brought in by a mining town called Gold Lick, Oregon, to save them from a monster because they have mistakenly believed that he is Ash from The Walking Dead. From The Walking Dead? Jesus Christ! From The Evil Dead, and not actually Bruce Campbell. And it's made to be a schlocky B-movie style film. It's very knowing. It's very self-aware. And I couldn't stand it. I got about half an hour into it and I just lost all interest in what was going on. Like I am not against people making low budget B movie stuff and bringing in people that aren't necessarily kind of like top of their class where it comes to acting, but there was just so much really wooden acting going on. There were people that were playing teenagers that were quite clearly in their 30s. I don't know. I mean, Bruce Campbell is absolutely the high point of this movie, but honestly, like, it doesn't give him anything compelling to do. He's basically playing an arsehole version of himself. I would much rather watch him play an arsehole character than just a version of himself. It just didn't really grab me. Andy, you said that you saw it. Do you remember anything of what you saw of it or how you felt watching it? Maybe I've really been unfair on this film.
No, surely not. I remember very little. I remember having seen the movie. I could not have told you any plot points or anything about the movie, but you don't have to worry about having your card revoked because how many really good Bruce Campbell movies are there really? So I think watching a Bruce Campbell movie that you haven't already seen always loses the chance of it being a shitty movie.
Yeah, so. I mean, I'm perfectly okay with saying that a Bruce Campbell movie isn't good, but I'll be damned if I watch a Bruce Campbell movie and I don't find it enjoyable.
That makes sense.
I at least finished it, so yeah, I have that on you. But
I may try to finish it, but honestly, it was such a slog. I just thought, no, I've got better things to do with my time. So I went off.
If you've watched the Evil Dead movies and Psycho or Maniac Cop 2, then everything after that is extra credit. I think. In terms
it's all gravy, baby.
Well, not in that way, but just you've gone above and beyond if you've watched Bruce Campbell. Well, okay, Bubba Hotep. I'll throw that one in there.
Bubba
too.
Hotep,
Yeah.
Like, a lot of that stuff gets aggressively name checked in this movie as well. Like they mention the Evil Dead movies, they mention Bubba Hotep. One of the characters is wearing a Bubba Hotep t-shirt. Like he's a Bruce Campbell superfan, this kid, and I'm just kind of like, honestly, I was paying so little attention to this movie because it just wasn't doing stuff for me. I don't know how a town where this kid is a super fan of Bruce Campbell got Bruce Campbell to come in and they didn't know it was Bruce Campbell and not Ash from the Evil Dead. It's such a fucking loophole. I can only imagine that he was murdered at some point by, and get this, the setup's great, right? It's a mining town. There was a disaster like 100 years ago. The town was essentially buried and they built on top of it. The same story you've heard 100 times about like haunted, bloody mining towns, right? But then
didn't we just ran into this on our
literally did
last episode, wasn't it? Until Dawn had a thing.
It was, yeah.
Or 2 episodes ago.
These kids go to a graveyard, and this one kid who's a massive Bruce Campbell fan, he sees a like golden amulet-looking thing on the entrance to a boarded-up mine shaft. Which anyone that's seen any horror movie ever will be like, don't fucking touch that, you douchebag. He not only touches it, he takes it for himself. Lights flash, explosions happen, and I don't know how to explain this except that maybe because the mining towns used cheap labour from immigrant countries like China and Ireland, the ghost of a aggressively stereotypical Chinese man with Fu Manchu facial hair and like a little hat, and he just appears, and apparently he's the big bad. And I'm like, really? Okay, fine. Like, what Scooby-Doo shit is this? I was just expecting to whip the mask off, and it's the mayor, and it's like, I would have got away with it too if it wasn't for you damn kids and your pesky movie star friend. But yeah, no, it wasn't great. So anyway, I won't take up any more time with that. In preparation for today's episode, I did rewatch Man Bad Horror, which is a video essay by Delaney Jordan, also known on YouTube and other places as Infinite Snow Productions. I saw this when it first came out, maybe like a year or two ago, and it really recontextualized a lot of Last Night in Soho for me, because that is one of the major touching points in this essay, along with Men. And what was that movie? Oh, Jesus Christ. I can remember nobody's names. And so this is going to be a really difficult
Lawrence
thing for
Pugh is in it, and Chris Pine. Olivia Wilde made it.
Yeah, that's the one. You've seen this essay as well.
Yeah, I stopped at that point. I saw half the essay. I saw that was the next movie. I have seen the movie. Yeah,
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
So yeah, it touches on all those, and then it finishes off with Mouthwashing as a great example of proper man bad horror, where it's horror that explains why men are bad, but doesn't necessarily fall into a lot of pitfalls of it.
Mouthwashing, the video game?
Video game, yeah.
Oh, cool. I have that game. I've never played it.
It
so
looks
maybe I should.
insane. It's not the kind of game... I don't think it's the sort of game that I typically play, but it's one that I'm interested in playing as a result of the essay. And then after that, just randomly, I am not a subscriber to, but I've watched enough that the algorithm has learned that I will watch this shit if they serve it up to me. A video podcast. As an aside, I don't like the term video podcast, generally speaking. Like...
I've got mixed feelings about it too.
Podcasting has a genealogy which goes back to iTunes specifically, and like the idea of listening to a internet radio show that has been recorded and put out for an iPod. Right. Just call it a fucking video. Anyway, so...
Man, sorry, just another tangent on that. I felt old as fuck earlier this week because I was playing... Fortnite with Daniel, and before they just I don't know if they still have it, but before they just rebooted the season yesterday. But before that, they had a Stranger Things mode, like I think it was Blitz or something. I don't remember. But it's a smaller map, and there's like elements of Hawkins from it, and so I don't think that the radio station was in the previous seasons. At least I didn't remember it. But that's part of the new season. Robin is like a DJ at this radio station, and there's a giant radio tower. And Daniel was like, "So what's that?" And I was explaining it or whatever. And he was like, "Oh, so they're like doing a podcast." And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." It was just the idea. I was like, "Do I start explaining radio like shows?" Like it was just even that is like felt dead. Anyway. Go ahead.
So yeah, I saw a video in an ongoing series on YouTube from a channel called Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum. So Michael Rosenbaum.
Some clips from that.
There we go. He is the guy that played Lex Luthor in Smallville, and he started this interview-style show on YouTube where he talks to primarily it's actors. And he'll not just talk to them about process or, like between two palm trees shit. Ferns. Between two ferns.
Between two palm trees.
That's my off-brand version that will be coming to the network soon. He'll also talk to them about like general life stuff and, how you getting on? How you doing? Like you've had mental struggles in your life. How have you dealt with that? Like he really kind of like tries to dig deep into the person rather than the celebrity. And he had an interview with a previous co-star of his, Alison Mack, who some people will be aware was caught up in a big scandal a few years ago. She was part of a cult, which...
Yeah, so when Dave says big scandal, you don't mean like... she was briefly canceled. There are documentaries about the scandal, like multiple ones. Yeah.
She went to prison for this shit.
Nexium was that the name of it? I think?
Was the name of the cult, and she was in there for like 11, 12 years. I think she was involved with it, and like she just talks about how she's out the other side now. It seems as though she's got her head clear. She understands what happened, how it happened, and is determined that not only does it not happen to her again, but she's now doing some education so that she can get her degree to become I don't think it's a psychiatrist. I think it's one of the others. Yep, that's gone. Never mind. She wants to basically get involved in the rehabilitation of prisoners because she's seen it from that side of the bars and realizes just kind of how fucking broken the American penal system is. So she's done a lot of study in like therapy and psychoanalysis and analysis and stuff like that. And she goes into the fucking weeds and talks about her experience in Nexium. They're not quite as blunt as to say, yes, there were a bunch of people that got fucking raped, and you had a part in that. Because there was grooming involved, and I don't know that I know all of the facts, but yeah, there was some really bad shit going on. And like she makes a really good point, which is like, look, for the first 7 or 8 years when I was involved in Nexium, it was a really great thing. It was life affirming, it was positive. I wasn't being asked to do anything that felt wrong or illegal. And then one day it just started to change, and Keith started asking me to do things, and it's grooming, essentially. It's just a different form of grooming. It's that they get you comfortable, they get you feeling like you can trust these people, and then they just push the boundaries just a little bit at a time, and before you know it, you're doing some reprehensible shit.
I saw a lot of people I've seen some clips from this interview, and I saw a lot of people in the comments arguing about like, some people saying like, I don't want to have it, like, I'm not on board for this redemption tour, like she did horrible shit, blah, blah, blah. And that she's they're trying to not spin it, but like, and then I saw other people being like, if you listen to the entire podcast, like she's very remorseful and seems not in a way of excusing, but in a way of like taking genuine responsibility. And also I've seen some clips from that same podcast with Michael Rosenbaum where he told one story about how she showed up at his house one time with some friends, and it was when she was in the cult stuff. And they just walked into his house and started like eating his food in his kitchen. Jesus. And were just being super weird and like not adhering to any kind of, standard social norms. And he finally had to call them out and just be like, what the fuck's going on? Like, you guys need to leave. Like, and it was just super weird. He just was like, the person that I knew was just gone. Like she was not in that body. It didn't feel like anymore. And Yeah, I haven't watched any of those documentaries, but I've read a little bit about it, and it all just seemed really bad.
Yeah, I mean, literally all I knew up to that point was Alison Mack used to be in Superman, and now she's in a cult and in prison.
She was Chloe.
Like that was literally all I really knew of it. I didn't look too deep into it because who needs that shit to deal with along with everything else that life throws at you? But
sure.
Yeah, I'm glad to see that she's out the other side of it and seems to be taking positive steps, not just for herself, but also for other people. And, only time will tell with this stuff, what she's going to do with her life from here on out. And she said, like, I'm only doing this one podcast. Like, I'm not doing interviews with anyone else. She did a documentary style interview, which got turned into a podcast that went into the weeds again on what happened with her. And it's kind of like one of those serial style podcasts, where it goes into everything and really kind of like analyzes stuff. But she said, this is the only sit down interview I'm doing, and then I'm done with it. So I think the idea of it being a redemption tour, that seems a little bit harsh, because clearly like this isn't something where she's going to be on fucking Fox Tonight next week, and then she's going to be on again. CBS Good Morning, and like she said in the thing, like, she does miss acting, and she kind of wishes that she could still be involved in it in some way, shape, or form, and she is looking to. And I can't remember if she said that she was involved in some community stuff or if she was looking to do it, but she said that like acting is a very freeing thing to do, and she would love to, if the opportunity came up, she would love to get back involved with it. But it seems as though she's dedicated her life in for the meantime to going down a route of education and social work, by the sounds of it. So whether that will be high paid private social work or whether it will be actual useful social work in the community, we don't know. But
sure.
It was an interesting thing to watch this week. It wasn't on my schedule. I wasn't aware that she was out of prison or anything like that, but it came up and I was just like, do you know what? It's not a Watch Mojo list of 10 people whose careers went shitty. So we've all seen them. Like, it's got a picture of Alison Mack, and next to her is the girl that played Kess, who, had an absolute career meltdown after she left that show. I'm not gonna give these top 10 AI voiced shits the time of day. But if you sit down in an interview with somebody and they've got something interesting to say, especially if it's an interviewer who I've got mileage with already, I know that he asks the kind of questions that I'm interested to hear the answers to, then I'll sit down and watch that. Like, no problem at all. So yay for the YouTube algorithm. It gave me some quality to watch this week. And that is very nearly it. I just want to complain very quickly about Netflix and their propensity for stupidity where it comes to the release of their limited engagement films on cinema screens, specifically in the UK, because I feel like in the US there's a pretty broad church where it comes to cinemas that get these screenings. I would really like to go and watch Wake Up Dead Man in cinemas, much as I wanted to watch Frankenstein in cinemas. Now, Frankenstein, it's my fault. I was lazy, I took too long, and it wasn't showing by the time I got around to it. That's on me. That's fine. However, Wake Up Dead Man, I would love to see. Do you know what happens when you type a film into Google normally when it's showing in your country? It will have an option at the top that says watch film, and you can tap it and it will show you all the listings and where they are. Somebody didn't pay Google to do that shit for this movie because you cannot find screenings. No, Google just opened up on my phone because I've been saying Google too many times. So I had to actively kind of like search it out and find out where I could watch it.
It is, I will say, like, it is also, obviously, it's better here than it sounds like it is there, but it's pretty limited here, too. It was the same way with Frankenstein. Like, I've mentioned I have, like, the Regal Unlimited thing, so I go to Regal theaters all the time and watch movies there. In fact, I think I'm going to go see Predator Badlands again tonight.
Nice.
It's only, they won't show at Regal theaters. It must be some deal Netflix has. I don't know if they have an exclusive. I don't think it's an exclusive thing. They usually end up at AMC theaters. Yeah. But it's not everywhere. Like, it's definitely. And then with Frankenstein, it was some bullshit where it was like, it was at this theater for this week, and then it was gone, and then it was at these other 2 theaters for the next week, and then it was gone. Like, it was not consistently playing in multiple places.
No, they have some. It's partly because of the Oscars. Legitimately, like, there are some archaic rules where it comes to the Oscars where you have to play in a certain number of screens, and then you're considered for an Oscar, or you can apply to be nominated to have an Oscar nomination or some shit. I don't know. The Oscars are fucking weird, man. But anyway, Netflix want that gold on their shelf, right? So they are releasing in cinemas. The problem is they don't actually want to release a film.
That's what I was going to say.
Way. Yeah.
They're aggressively. Ted Sarandos has said a bunch of dumb shit about how when he grew up, he never went to movie theaters, and it was never that, and like it's the thing of the past. And
I'm sorry, Ted, but fuck you. I want to watch it in the cinema.
Yeah, and it's interesting watching these filmmakers that have these deals with Netflix, like Del Toro and Rian Johnson, where they're like they both have said, I think, pretty insightful and pointed things while being very careful and not. I mean, Del Toro's even made like a comparison to like having to be in the boat with these people that are, and they're helping steer the boat. So having to sort of navigate that. Yeah. But it is interesting because, like, especially, filmmakers like Johnson and Del Toro that are like aggressively pro theatrical experience. Yeah. That's why one of this whole thing with them selling or merging, I forget now who all the players involved are, like, they've made all these promises that people immediately are calling bullshit on, where it's like they're not going to honor that. Like, they, as soon as they can get out of theaters and make everybody watch stuff at home, they've won.
I don't know why Netflix hates money, but
I stopped getting mine.
Well, yeah, I mean, too right, I guess. I found out eventually. There are places. I think in the UK, the biggest chain that people might recognise is Everyman Theatres. And don't get me wrong, I love going to Everyman, but the problem is that, like, Everyman Theatres is one of those like premium experience bullshit cinema chains, right? So like they've got sofas instead of chairs. Sure. They serve you order your food and they serve it to you in the cinema while the film is playing. You have cushions and shit. Like, before the film starts, somebody walks to the front of the theater and basically gives you like a welcome to Everyman. Today you're watching blah blah blah. Before that, please remember you can order your food here. Blah blah blah. Have a lovely time and enjoy the film. And it's like I don't need any of this bullshit. What I want is to be able to pay a reasonable amount of money to sit in a reasonably comfortable chair for 2 hours and watch a really good fucking movie.
Yeah, leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah.
I've already gotten my food.
I do not want to pay, and this is me being a cheap motherfucker here, I do not want to pay £20 for the benefit of watching a movie in a cinema. And I know that makes me a bad person because I should put up or shut up, but 20 quid is a lot of money to go and watch a film. Right. Especially when it's going to be on Netflix inside a month for, not for free because you pay a subscription, but like, if you already have a subscription with them, you're basically getting it for nothing. And it's just irritating because, like, it's the same argument as a lot of people have with public transport. If you make public transport really cheap, more people use that shit and it becomes profitable through economy of scale, right? Mm-hmm. That's how that shit should work. Nobody ever seems to understand that. And it's the same with the cinemas. If you put it in cinemas that charge like £7, £8 for a ticket, more people will go and watch your film and you'll end up with bigger box office. Like, I just don't understand. I don't even know with Everyman whether you get more money per ticket sold for Everyman showing your film than you do for a cheap place like View, or whether it's a bog standard takeaway, whether they get a percentage or whether they get like a flat fee. I guess it depends on a case-by-case basis, like they can negotiate that shit. But it's just irritating, and it annoys me, and I hate that I am going to end up having to pay. I mean, here it is, and I'm really sorry that I'm dragging this on. I'll be done in a second, guys. I really do promise you. I looked up whether I could get tickets for My Neighbour Totoro in the West End. Because I saw an advert for it saying that they were back in London. They were going to be playing all throughout.
Oh,
until
the
March.
Stage play.
Yeah, the stage play. Yeah,
got it.
I can get a seat to watch My Neighbour Totoro in the West End with real life actors that need to get paid for that shit for £25.
Yeah,
And that is only £5 more than watching a movie at Everyman. Why would I want to pay the money to go to Everyman when I can go and watch a live performance by talented people with animatronic shit going on and amazing music and it all being done live for £5 more? Like, make it make sense, Netflix. Sorry,
Netflix
I'm done.
And it's not going to be the
This show brought to you by Netflix, our sponsors for this week, where you can get a subscription plan for $12.99 a month.
All right. Well, on that note, let's talk about a movie that's, I don't think, on Netflix, or it's at least not a Netflix exclusive. Cool. Last Night in Soho. Let's get into it. 2021 psychological horror film directed and co-produced by Edgar Wright, co-written by Wright and Christy Wilson-Cairns. Carnes. I cannot remember how to say her last name.
It's Cairns, I think.
Cairns, okay.
Yep.
Thomasin McKenzie stars as a naive teenager who, I'm reading from Wikipedia here, who moves to London to study fashion design. There she is haunted by visions of Sandy, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, a glamorous young woman who had lived during the swinging 60s. The cast also features Matt Smith, Terrence Stamp, Rita Tushingham, Michael Ajao, Diana Rigg, Margaret Nolan in their final film roles. This came out, as I mentioned, in 2021. Didn't do great at the box office, but was critically and maybe audience-wise, Edgar Wright audience-wise, maybe a little bit more split. This would have been the first. I want to double-check his filmography here, but I believe, this would have been the first one that wasn't just kind of like The World's End had a little bit of division, maybe, but not a ton. It was still Simon Pegg and Frost and that whole crew or whatever. But I remember this being the first one that people were kind of torn on. As I mentioned before, we did an episode on it. I had watched the first 20 minutes or so. I remember really liking the first 20, 30 minutes that I watched. And then you guys also liked the entire movie, which, as I brought up on the last episode, is what brought us to this point. To talk about the full film. So I am not going to start, even though I'm the first one to see it. Let's revisit your reaction, or let's visit your reactions. Jesus, I can't speak. Andi, what did you think about it this time around?
Oh, I did not listen to our old recording. I do not know exactly what I said about the movie the first time that I'd seen it and the first time we did an episode on it, but I know that I was positive on the movie. I think I wasn't enthusiastic, but I think I liked the movie. And then that movie stayed with me since then, without rewatching it, which rarely a movie does, to stay that present in my mind and to even influence how I spent my following weeks after having seen the movie and after having recorded the podcast. I finally read Nick Hornby's book Funny Girl, which is about a young woman in the 60s having crowned Miss Blackpool, moving to London and wanting to become a star in the entertainment industry. Not as dark as Last Night in Soho, but still same era, similar kind of story. I listened to 60s British pop music for weeks. Whenever I'm in London, when I'm walking through the streets of Soho, that movie is present in my mind. When I now rewatching the movie, I feel like I am in those streets because I've been in those streets. I am like every year or every couple of years, wherever I'm in that neighborhood, and so rewatching it this time, I'm in love with the movie. I think the whole aesthetic of the movie, the atmosphere, especially all the moments in the 60s. So the first half of the movie I find so strong. Of course, the filmmaking, the way they did all the shots with Thomasin McKenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy in mirrors, and that famous dance sequence, the music. I'm a huge fan of that movie now, and as I said, probably if I had never rewatched the movie, it still would be as present as when I saw it for the first time, and it just never left my mind and was always lingering in the back of my brain, and from time to time peeked out, especially when spending time in London. And I must say I love the pulp of it, especially towards the end, when it becomes an exploitation film of sorts, even a bit of a hexploitation film, some hexploitation elements to it, and the whole this combination of having something to say, and we will talk about that when we talk about that video essay that Dave already mentioned, but also not shying away from being an exploitation horror movie with style. I love it. That's my 5 cents. Is it 5 cents?
Yeah,
that's it. That's the German
2 cents,
expression.
5 cents.
Inflation.
Inflation. That's my pound for it. Dave.
I did listen to our previous recording because I was very interested to know or remember, because my memory isn't good enough, whether I had actually changed my opinions on it from the first recording to now, after having interacted with a lot more media surrounding this movie and encountering different points of view. And I think visually I still really, really enjoy this movie. Like, from a filmmaking perspective, everything that you've mentioned, like the dance scene, the mirror work, the camera work, the Giallo nature of it, which is something we brought up last time, like the use of the red and blue neon flashing lights in some of the scenes in her bedsit. That scene where she first kind of like goes to sleep and falls into the world of 1960 Soho, where she pulls the cover over her head and the camera pulls back and it's just this tunnel of sheets. It's all just beautifully done. And I still feel uncomfortable. That taxi ride into London still feels uncomfortable. And I did mention that, I think, in the last episode that we talked about this as well. But you know how, like, sometimes we review something and I start off with one opinion, and then as we're talking about it, I become more or less enthusiastic about it based on what I'm talking about with you guys. This might be the first time with a movie where my opinion has shifted, not because of an opinion that I've had with you guys, but because of something else that I've interacted with, and it's given me different viewpoints that I hadn't necessarily considered at all. And that is the Infinite Snow Productions Man Bad Horror essay, which again we will talk about later. I still enjoy this film. I find a lot of worth in watching it. I think it's visually amazing. From a production point of view, it's great. It's got some heavy-hitting actors in it, as already mentioned. You know, you've got the likes of Diana Rigg and Terence Stamp in supporting roles. Then you've got Matt Smith being, and I did mention this last time, but Matt Smith has got this ability to be the most charming person in the world or the most deranged, smutty, horrible person in the world. He's got this ability to flip a switch and be either or, which really came into handy when he was playing Prince Philip in The Crown. A person who really was not a great person, but also was a very charming motherfucker as well. And then, like, the dual double billing of Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie. Just love both of their performances, even though I think Taylor-Joy doesn't really get a fully fleshed out character to really play with very much. She's very much just playing a victim for most of the film. I feel like Diana Rigg is the one that gets to get her teeth really into the meat of that character. Taylor-Joy is almost more like an avatar for Thomasin McKenzie's character in a way. But again, we'll get into that later. I still really enjoyed it. I have a more complex relationship with it now. But, you know, You live and learn, you expand your horizons, and you interact with media in different ways. Otherwise, why would we be rewatching The Descent and Deathgasm? Never happening. There wouldn't be any point in it, would there? Because like, if we are in a time capsule, if we don't, as humans, change through our experiences and our interactions over our lives, then what's the point in re-experiencing media? There we go. Anyway, David, I want to know what you thought, because this is the first time anyone's going to hear this.
I liked it. I thought it was pretty cool. It's weird. Like, I think there's been plenty of films where you have, or at least for me, where I land in a place where it's like, I really like these aspects, I didn't really like these aspects, but then on a second watch, you're able to be, or at least for me, I'm able to be a little bit more forgiving, or to be like, all right, this is what I like about this movie, and it's not, a beginning to end amazing time. Like, there are things about it that I wish were different, but whatever. But I can meet it on its own terms and enjoy it for what it is. This was one where it was like that sort of thing, but more flipped, to where it was like, I think a second watch will make me like and appreciate it even more, but I also already kind of just like and appreciate it as it is. I do think there are flaws. I think pretty much all of them are with the script, which, for me at least, which was surprising, slightly disappointing. I'm a huge defender and fan of 1917, which Christy Wilson-Cairns, I believe, either wrote or co-wrote. She co-wrote it with Sam Mendes. So she did a podcast back when they were promoting it, and I loved listening to her talk about it. Like, first of all, great accent, but second of all, just her passion, her enthusiasm for the project. She talked about how for that film, I think it was her and her mom, maybe, they walked that path. Like, they walked that trail, basically, that they are traveling in 1917, which, if anybody doesn't know, it's a movie set during World War I. These two soldiers are having to get from one place to another front line to stop this other troop of soldiers from charging, because they're just going to get killed. They don't realize that they're running into a death sentence, essentially. So it all comes down to these two guys trying to get there. And so it's kind of done in real time and blah, blah, blah. So it got kind of like, a lot of people brushed it aside at the time as like, oh, this is Oscar bait, whatever. I thought it was super compelling. I loved, even though the script is relatively thin, just out of necessity of what the plot is, I thought it was crazy well done, and just really, like, there was a lot of depth that they were able to pull out of it, at least for me. So I was especially excited because I had not seen another project from her, because she hasn't done a lot. She did 1917, and then she did Last Night in Soho, and then she did a movie for Netflix called The Good Nurse, which I have not seen. And then she also, before all of that, did some Penny Dreadful. Just a couple of episodes. So she hasn't done a ton of stuff, but I was super excited when Edgar Wright got connected with her for this. So I'm not pinning the blame on her by any means. She co-wrote this movie with Edgar Wright, but there definitely were things about it with the script where I was just kind of like, I don't get this decision. Like, I don't really understand why they went in this direction with it. That all being said, I was I don't know. Maybe it was because my expectations going into it. I knew that people were very critical, or I've seen a lot of people be critical of the ending. I've seen a lot of people be critical of some of the second half. Like, a lot of people that you see people talk how strong the first half is, and then the second half sort of whiffs it. I don't know if it's because my expectations were already adjusted. I saw all of those flaws and recognized and definitely agree with a lot of them, but it also, for me, didn't really detract from the overall film and its overall strength. I think the style of it, like, this was a movie too where it doesn't happen a ton for me anymore. I used to, when I was a kid, I used to be very pulled into soundtracks to where it was like, I remember, I don't know why this is the first one that came to mind, but Small Soldiers, Joe Dante movie. I loved that movie as a kid. And I immediately wanted to go out and get the soundtrack. And in that movie's defense, the soundtrack was like newer or it was older songs. So like 80s songs and stuff that Dante used in that movie. So I would listen to the CD, the soundtrack on repeat. Every once in a while it'll happen, like Guardians of the Galaxy was one where it was just like, oh, that would just be an awesome album to have. And this was one that I felt the same way. I'm going this coming weekend to Columbus to see a comedy thing, and Columbus has one of my favorite record shops I've ever been to. I always go when I go there. And I have a little list I've been making over the past however many months since going there of like, oh, I want to see if they have this record, whatever. And I added this to the list. I was like, I would absolutely own this one. I think all the music is great. The visual stuff, like it's the more understated stuff in this visual in terms of like the visual tricks and everything are the ones that I really love, that really get me excited. The bigger things with like more flashy CG, whatever else, like, yeah, it's neat. But the camera stuff, the reflections, the mirror thing, like all of that, I think is so well done and adds to like the texture and just like the overall vibe of the movie in a way that, like I think that's kind of the movie. That's it totally makes sense to how you described it, Andi, with like that being caught up in that vibe and that's, I think true for the character, obviously too, for Thomasin McKenzie's character. What's her name? Ellie. With, she's in love with that era and the music and the fashion and everything else. So, I think that there are things with the script where I was just kind of like, that's an odd decision. It doesn't really work. But overall, I definitely enjoyed it. And it is not my least favorite Edgar Wright movie. It's my second least favorite Edgar Wright movie, but only because I do like his other movies a lot. So it's one of those situations where it's like, I don't think that it's bad by any means. But it does stumble at times, but I think it's definitely one of those where the overall just sort of vibe and atmosphere of the movie is the movie for me. Like, I think that's what makes it worth watching, makes it entertaining, it keeps you pulled in. I've seen people be critical, talk about it being slow or boring. I didn't get that vibe. I think again, in the second half, there is some meandering where we're basically just kind of hitting the same beats a few times in a row with the script. But again, like you mentioned too, Dave, like the cast is so strong. I always forget how amazing Thomasin McKenzie is. She'll show up in something that I didn't realize that she was in. Jojo Rabbit was one. I remember being kind of blown away by her performance in that, and this was no exception. Like, she carries the film 100%. Anya Taylor-Joy's great always. Honestly, in this one, I think she's overshadowed by McKenzie, like probably because she doesn't have as much to do, like you said, and a lot of the like payoff stuff. Like, she's stuck in the past, and she's very limited in what she's able to do until we get that reveal, and then it becomes what's her name? Rigg. I forgot her name. Rigg. Diana Rigg. It becomes her performance and everything else. But it was I really enjoyed it. I thought it was cool, and the colors, like the visual stuff is definitely, I think, a massive highlight, and really sort of wraps everything up for me as like, yeah, this is why I'll watch this movie again in the future. Not as much the script, but that's okay. I think it wasn't a total whiff for me. Like a lot of people, really criticize the ending, and I understand why. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't think it's strong, but I also, I think by that point, the stuff that stands out and works really well in the movie isn't dependent on the script. So when it sort of fails you, it's like, okay. I mean, let's finish it out. Let's see how the story ends and everything else. And so, yeah, I dug it. Good stuff. We all done talking about the movie now?
I guess we're done. Yeah, yeah. I've done all this prep. I'm just gonna fuck it.
I watched a little. I didn't get to watch all of the essay. I watched a little bit of the Soho section. Yeah. The vibe that I got from the clip I was able to see was that they were critical of the treatment of women in the film. I'm assuming that was the vibe go ahead.
I've got some notes here which really kind of sum it up. At least here's the thing. I'm never going to be able to sum up that essay as well as the essay sums itself up.
Sure.
And I'm never going to be able to say things as well or as succinctly as Delaney Jordan can. I did actually.
I'm sure you'll have it linked. I'm sure in our show notes.
I will do. I did actually reach out to Delaney about the possibility of coming on the show, and she couldn't make it work, unfortunately.
Maybe I'm not on that show then.
Okay. No, it's she couldn't make it happen. It was short notice, and we wasn't able to make it work. But still, I think she leads with a quote from Edgar Wright himself about the nature of the kind of movies that take this idea of a girl from a small town girl coming to London to make it big, kind of Dick Whittington kind of style. He said a lot of films of that period are about the darker side of Soho or of show business. You still have to question where they're coming from because there's a lot of them which are more sensationalistic ones that take this kind of punitive approach to the female characters. There's a lot of movies where it seems that the genre is girl comes to London to make it big and is roundly punished for her efforts. So that's from an interview from the LA Times, November 3rd, 2021. He was interviewed by Mark Olson. And yeah, that's great. That's exactly what this film is, though. Twice. Because not only have you got Sandy, who wants to make it big in London and comes to Soho and is roundly punished for her efforts, essentially being reduced to nothing more than a sensationalised call girl. But then on top of that, you've got the Ellie character, who comes to London to be a fashion designer and damn near has a nervous breakdown as a result. Both of them end up being punished for their what they want to do with their lives, for the fact that they're looking to better themselves to become stars. Nothing has been done differently from these other films that Edgar Wright kind of called out. And I'm just kind of like, I didn't have that information. I didn't have that quote. I didn't have that information. I certainly didn't have the point of view of people that are like survivors of sexual violence or things like that. Like, I'm privileged. I am a white middle-aged man. I haven't had to deal with that in my life. There was a point that she makes in the the essay where she says the last thing that Last Night in Soho can bear to be is icky. It's too clean, too glittery, and too skittish to face what an ugly thing it's choosing to portray. And I think back on the film, and I'm just like, yeah, like it is like it. The most icky that I felt in that entire movie was at the very beginning when she's in the taxi. And he starts saying all that stuff about, oh, you got a lovely pair of legs, haven't you, darling? And she has to cover her legs up. And like that felt about as icky as this movie felt. And bearing in mind, like the themes that the movie is trying to talk about, it doesn't go hard enough where it comes to those scenes where she's like, you get the flashback of Sandy in the bedroom with all of those men with blank faces, and they're all saying the same thing, like, oh, what a beautiful name, or whatever it was. I can't quite remember. It was like 2 weeks ago I watched this film. And like, that's as much as you get. And they're like, you're supposed to feel icky because of this. And it's like, well, no, it doesn't probably go hard enough in showing how degrading her position had become. What else have we got?
I mean, I'm torn on that. I haven't watched the whole. I need to watch the whole essay to get both the section on Soho, but then also just the entire thing to get. And again,
I
context.
may be massively misrepresenting here, but
no, I mean that was the vibe I got from the short clip I saw. Was that was kind of the vibe, which it's weird. Like the movie's doing a bunch of things at once with those ideas, like in terms of like showing what it was in the 60s, at least through this like supernatural lens and through her seeing it through this other person's eyes kind of thing. It's also like kind of, at least my take, like a love letter to that era in terms of the culture, the music, the fashion, all that kind of stuff. Like
that, I think it succeeds with, definitely, and it does try to illustrate the backwards sentiment of men of the era with like the show where they're all jeering her when they're doing the choreographed dance on the chairs and whatnot. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's a weird that whole aspect in general, I think, is a tough sort of line to walk, because unless you are really devoting, I don't know. Again, it's three straight dudes talking about sexual violence against women, and like we haven't had these experiences. So it's always tough because you don't want to be like, well, here's what it should be, or here's how it is. Like this is just my limited perspective as well. But I think in my experience watching stuff, unless you're gonna go like, there's a miniseries called, I don't remember the name of it now. It's got Toni Collette, Michael Chabon, and his wife wrote on it. Ayat Waldman. It was very good, but it was true story about them trying to catch this serial rapist dude. And actually, I want to say no, it's not Thomas and Mackenzie. It's what's her name from that Alien movie? Doesn't matter. It's Caitlin Dever. Thank you. It's I think it's called Unforgivable or Unacceptable. It's something like that. It's one word, but it's very much, that was one of the things that was very like critically lauded for, was that they took a very nuanced, a very in-depth, a very respectful and serious approach to these topics and the effects that they have on women and the effects that they have on pressuring women to recant or to say like, oh, well, are you sure you weren't doing this? And, you know, implying that it was their fault, and all of the psychological aspects that it has. Like the show was a procedural on one hand, but mostly it was about really sort of tackling this stuff head on and, you know, taking it putting the amount of serious critical analysis lens that it deserves. Because it is a very complex, nuanced, awful, horrific thing that we don't deal well with in society, and especially a society run and controlled by men. So it's tough because I feel like, at least with media, unless you are making that the focus, it's going to be tough to not be critical of like, well, they didn't do enough of this thing. Like it's kind of either like you have to make it all about that, or if you have it, you're going to get criticism for it not being, you know, taking it seriously enough. And the counter argument to that, I think, would be, or at least for me, is like, that's not necessarily the story they were trying to tell. That's not necessarily the story. Like, it's part of the story, but in the same way, like at the top of this, you know, rambling that I'm on in right now, that was my first sort of main point, is like, they're trying to do a bunch of stuff. And so I think because of that, and I think that you can find criticism in the film with other ways for the same reason, in that, you know, they succeed really well at some things and not as much as with other things. There were aspects of the script that I did find odd when it came to the like gender relation stuff. It was strange to me that in a movie that I felt was pretty like we have a protagonist who is, you know, sympathetic, likable. She's great. Like you're always on her side. And I think the message of the movie in a lot of ways is sympathetic, even toward Diana Rigg's character, toward, you know, the twist or whatever, toward Sandy, and that Thomas and Mackenzie stops her from killing herself at the end and embraces her, and, you know, it's saying like, I know why you did what you did. Like you were in this hellish, awful nightmare scape, and you were protecting yourself, and you know, maybe you went a little bit too far in murdering tons of people, but there's empathy, there's sympathy, there's an understanding towards her. What was odd to me was that there were times in that second half, especially in the third act, where I almost felt like we were supposed to feel a little bit sympathetic toward the male victims. And those were the moments for me where I was like, this is a little weird. Like when there's that twist of them stopping, or they start finally speaking to Thomas and Mackenzie. And it's a trope we've seen in other movies, especially supernatural ones, where like the ghost that's been chasing them the whole time, when they finally are confronted by it, they realize the ghost isn't trying to kill them. It's trying to be like, you know, I want your help. I want you to free me from this thing.
I mentioned Gothica in our last review of this film, and I shall mention it again.
So like, it's a known thing. I don't necessarily have a problem with that, but it is odd after we've seen that these were all like shitbag rapist dudes that I'm not going to get into the the argument of like, did they deserve to be killed? Like, whatever. But they weren't good people. Like, at least the film presents it like they were doing terrible, awful things. Now, trying to then be like, well, how terrible, and put them on a gauge of like, were they just being creepy, or were like, I'm not interested in doing that. The movie presents them as bad dudes. So when we are then confronted with like, well, no, she needs to set them free, there's part of me where I'm like, does she? Like, these are clearly evil bad guys that were killed for evil bad acts. So to now have even just this brief moment of sympathy for them, to me felt odd, where I was like, I'm not really on board with this. And not that it had to be absolutely, it was another one of those moments where it waded into waters that the movie doesn't have the space to be nuanced enough about it. Like, you can do that in forms of art. I think obviously a lot of times it works better in novels, where you have lots of time, lots of space, lots of mechanisms to get into characters' heads and to sort of explore how people are multifaceted and are flawed and are messed up themselves and blah, blah, blah. In a movie that is, in most ways, I think, primarily concerned with this, the visual flair, the vibe, the style, and everything, there's not a lot of room for that sort of nuance. And so I think that's why at times it does stumble and trip and kind of fall over itself and feel odd with the script, because there's the main takeaway too. I like when that whole thing about like, they set out, like, he's recognizing that there are these films that do this thing, and then he just made another one. That's and I'm not comparing the genres here because I don't think they're exactly the same. I wouldn't call this a rape revenge film, but that's one of my main things a lot of times with rape revenge films, is even the ones that I need to rewatch Revenge. I was just reading about it the other day, especially after how much I love The Substance. But that was kind of my take on watching Revenge back when it came out, was that I was like, it's still a rape revenge movie. Like, it was tough for me. And again, maybe that comes from, me being a straight white dude who is very, cisgender, like very much in as privileged as a place as possible. But I also know there were critics that called out a similar thing, both male and female. I'm not trying to see like, oh, I've got the right, stance here, but I wasn't alone in that, where it's like, we're subverting this genre. We're taking these tropes and turning them on their heads. And then you watch the movie and you're like, she gets raped and then gets her revenge. Like, this is, these are the tropes. Like, we're doing the same thing again. So, but it did have differences with Revenge. Like, just so I don't seem like I'm saying it's just like I Spit on Your Grave. There's the male gaze is different. Like, there's plenty of stuff in there with, I forget her name. Andi, do you remember her name? Who made The Substance and Revenge?
Something like that.
Thank you. Yep. Not something like that. Not only did you remember, but you nailed the accent too.
My French pronunciation might be way off.
I guarantee you it's probably the best of the three of us here.
Absolutely. I think that even with Revenge, a movie I did like, I thought it was really well done. I can tell that she's not making a movie like men have made with that genre. But at its core, there was still a part of me that was like, we're still kind of doing the same thing. So it's not totally subverting it, and it was a weird sort of feeling. So I definitely understand that sentiment too with this movie of like, we want to do this thing because we see this thing, and why is it that happens? Well, I don't know, because we still made another one that does the same thing. Like, it is kind of a weird exercise. But I think ultimately that's why, kind of the thing I said at the top of the segment, for me, the movie is all of these strengths, and that's kind of what the movie is. I'm on a rewatch, I'm not going to be trying to dig deeper into the script because I don't think that there's enough there. Like, I think there's very little to go with, and if that's off-putting and a deal breaker, totally get that. I don't begrudge anyone for, not connecting with it for those reasons. But for me, at least, it was like, this movie's trying to do a lot of things. It's doing these 1 to 3 things the best, and then the other things are kind of left with the scraps of what's left.
It's just kind of a shame that, like, one of the things it doesn't really necessarily do that great is like what the main point of the film should have been. And like I'm gonna like say again, like I enjoy this film. I think it's a very well made film visually. The acting is good. I think the script is kind of where it falls down a bit, but again, like, this is after having been given an alternative point of view, a point of view which I hadn't considered before because I've been fortunate enough I've not had to think about that kind of stuff. And I'm not...
And I think that's, to your credit too, I think that's such a great and vital part of interacting with art. Even and it's happened plenty of times for me where I maybe don't even agree, but I like hearing that because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, I'm completely okay with the fact that, like, for example, like Andi absolutely, by the sounds of it, doesn't subscribe to the to at least some of the ideas that were put forward in that essay, and that's absolutely fine because everyone comes at it from their points of view. I wanted to circle back to these men that were murdered. And I think probably one of the things that points to the fact that this movie kind of confuses itself and doesn't quite know what to do is the fact that they're bad people. And then they're not bad people. And then it's like, well, actually, if you kind of dive into the world of sex workers and you actually look at what it is, if Sandy was not forced into sex work, because this is the main sticking point, right? Sandy is basically coerced and forced into becoming a sex worker. And what's his name? Jack, the wonderful Matt Smith, who oozes smut and horribleness whenever he wants to. He is basically her pimp. He's forcing her to do these things. Now, the script is underdeveloped to the point that I don't know if all of these guys that were sleeping with her knew that she was being coerced, or if they are just men who were paying money to have sex with someone.
That's what I mean with, like, that's why it stumbles some for me, because it's like there's not enough time to, because like if we can only go off of what we're given. And I think that's the thing for me where it's like I struggle sometimes when people pull a lot out of a script where they're like, well, you can extrapolate this, and this, and this.
Yeah, but
you can, but well, I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying for this, but you can do that if you want, but unless there's something there, it's kind of becoming a fan fiction-y thing for you, which is totally fine. Like, you're adding more than what is there. Because all I can go off of in this movie is what I'm shown, and in those montages, at least from what I remember, like they all seem pretty creepy. Like they seem creepy
because they're portrayed to being creepy. But look at what they actually do, and they're sitting with her in the Café de Paris. I'm not defending anyone here. I'm just kind of like trying to kind of talk this one out in my own head.
I know. That's why that's the problem, is that there's not enough.
The context that we have is we see them talking to her at Café de Paris. We see them standing at the end of the bed having washed up after having sex with her. There is money on the side. She doesn't look as though she has been beaten or harassed in any way. She is upset at the fact that she is doing what she is doing because it is not her choice. We don't know for sure that they know that this is the case. And the film at some point has to, everyone has their own opinion on sex work and whether that is right or wrong. And I would argue that if you believe that it is a person's right to be a sex worker, then you also have to defend the fact that there are people who pay for sex. And you can't demonize them for paying for sex if you're not going to demonize sex workers who choose to do it for a living. Now, You've got the other side of that, where you've got sex workers who do not have a choice, or they're forced into it through no fault of their own. And
which I think the movie pretty clearly portrays that.
Yeah. That's absolutely the case. But then you have that grey area of, if you're a John, and I'm well aware that there is a character called John in this movie, and he is the nicest boy. But if you are a John, and you're paying a woman for sex, like, you're not necessarily going to be doing a questionnaire of, right, why did you get into this business? And okay, I see. And you tick all the boxes. Men aren't that fucking deep. They're just going to pay their money and have sex. And
it's, I think also another part of it too is like the era, the culture of men and how they treated women
have been
in
portrayed
general.
to be sleazebags in this movie, so you do draw that conclusion that these guys were all sleazebags that deserve to die.
That to me is the fatal flaw of this whole argument of this aspect of the movie, which ties back into the script, which is just that there's not enough time spent on any of these things to then have space for nuance. Like, they have to showcase it in a very specific way, and then have you sort of be on a certain side with it. They kind of do a similar thing with Terrence Stamp's character too, where you're led to believe the entire movie or suspect that he is the older version of Matt Smith.
Yeah.
But you then realize after he gets killed that he was maybe one of the only good guys, like, or I don't even know necessarily if he was like, the best dude ever, because he talks about some stuff where it seems like maybe he was kind of shady too. But also then in retrospect, you're like, well, maybe he was just this dude who saw a lot of bad shit and he was trying to protect the women back then and he wasn't able to save a lot of them and everything else. But even with that, it's sort of like, all right, that's a cool misdirect. It's similar to the misdirect with Emma Peel. I cannot remember her name. Diana Rigg.
Diana Rigby.
Diana Rigg.
Yeah, not Rigby. What the hell? I've got Beatles in my head now.
It's a similar misdirect that also kind of struggles because there's not enough space in the movie for what they're trying to pull off with these aspects, and so it just becomes sort of muddy. And I can see why for a lot of people it becomes a sticking point that kind of kills the movie for them. I think by that point, maybe because my expectations going in were already sort of adjusted a bit because I'd heard a lot of that criticism. For me, it was a thing where I'm like, all right, I'm liking this movie for none of those reasons. Like, it's not nailing that stuff. It doesn't have enough space for nuance. It doesn't have enough time or focus on these things to let them really sort of like grapple with the complexities. Like, you can't have that movie and have an exploitation movie like Giallo sort of inspired, like, vibes sort of thing at the same. They can't coexist. Or if they do, you need more space and suddenly you're in A24 territory, or you're in, Die My Darling or something, where it's like, we're going to deal with these very complex psychological aspects that are very real problems in real life that are multifaceted, but we're going to add in dream logic. We're going to add in these other things. And even something like Die My Darling, I think that's the name of it, right? Die My Love. Even a movie like that, I mentioned a couple weeks ago, whenever it was I talked about it, like, it kind of suffered for me at times because of that. Because it was like, well, what are we going to do here? Are we going to do a serious take where we actually get into it and treat it seriously? Or are we going to do the sort of like artsy, art house thing of like, well, what do you think it means? Like, based off of this surrealist imagery of this horse, like, what does the horse represent? Like, that's okay, but it's not impossible for them to both coexist, but you're definitely then going into territory that, unless you're Lynn Ramsey and it's very intentionally a thing where you're like not trying to make it easy for the audience. This movie, where I think it stumbles in that regard, is that it's still trying to be a commercially viable movie to a certain degree. Not, Now You See Me or fucking Fast Five or whatever levels of commercial viability, but it's not, it's not an art house thing that they went in knowing this is going to make zero money and who cares. Like, there's still a lot of panache and visual flair to it to pull people in, and the star power and everything else too. So that's why those aspects, I think, at least for me, feel so uneven. So yeah, I want to watch the whole essay because I definitely understand. I think probably based off of the clip that I saw, I'll probably land on the side of like, yeah, it doesn't succeed at that stuff, but it's also not doing enough to get to even the point where I felt like they're really trying. I felt like they were trying to plant some of those seeds, but for most people it didn't work because there's not enough there. And what little we do have, the other weird sticking point for me was I like the Diana Rigg, scene with Thomas and Mackenzie at the end, the hagsploitation stuff Andi said, especially sort of for that element. It was odd to me that she brought it up and talked about it at all, just because it was kind of like, nothing would have happened here. Like, you could have gotten away with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
it felt very much there. Like, we got to have the twist now. And to me, I was just like, you don't. Like, you could have it that she figures it out and then leaves. Like, it doesn't need to be this huge sort of like very dramatic confrontation ending. The again, genre film fan in me liked it and had fun with it. But also there was part of me that was just kind of like, it was sort of similar to some of the things in Stranger Things this season where I'm like, well, this is a very stupid plan, but okay, let's go with it.
I did
like, whatever.
I did find it to be a little bit of a shame that they did such a good job of dropping in breadcrumbs that you could connect yourself to suddenly realize who Mrs. Collins was. Like we see Sandy's bedroom and we see there's like a porcelain figure of like a woman in a dress on the sideboard. And then at the end of the film, as Thomasin McKenzie's character is coming into her parlour and is given the tea, we see that same figurine on the side. And there are little breadcrumb clues that are dropped in. And it does kind of feel a little bit of a shame that the film felt that it had to so aggressively explain everything.
It's clumsy.
Yeah, like it did feel very much kind of like, oh, we're wrapping up soon. Like, go home, guys. To use a wrestling metaphor, that's something I won't be doing very often on the show again. But yeah, like it did feel like it was maybe a little bit ham-fisted at the end there. Visually fucking love it. Like the way that she's climbing up the stairs after her and we're kind of mixing between Diana Riggs, Sandy, with the scissors or knife or whatever it was that she was trying to stab her with, and then it was switching to like fantasy younger version of Sandy with Anya Taylor-Joy, and she's on these kind of very kind of like, almost like 1930s style Hollywood stairs that are rising up, but she stabs into them and they crack. It's almost like her world is cracking around her. Like there's a lot of like visual language there, which I really loved. And
that to me is why I end up liking the movie, because of all that stuff. Like that's what for me like is the sort of carries it and makes it so easy to watch. Like I was never bored with it. Like that was one criticism I saw, some people being like, oh, it's really slow or it's boring. Like that wasn't my experience.
Slow. Genuinely. There are moments where it hangs up a little bit, but I didn't ever feel like it was spinning its wheels for no reason. Like there were decompression moments. There were times between dance scenes and, scenes in her bedroom with her what turned out to be her victims. But like, you have to see that there has to be.
It's a psychological thriller. I think. Yeah. Psychological horror. You like the psychological part is right, and that's something that I definitely struggle with at times. Is I tend to really like give me a psychological sort of my like power thing, more akin to Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. I believe I have the number correct. Where you have a girl who is just beating the dog shit out of Jason, telekinetically throwing him around the house. Like that's the kind of stuff I like a lot more when it comes to this trope. But so I admittedly struggle with it sometimes, where someone has abilities, but the abilities aren't really anything they can control. There's not really, it's more something that happens to them that they're able to experience and see things that other people don't see. I felt like this, as long as you can kind of accept and roll with that with this movie too, like Thomasin McKenzie's character is not the girl from Friday the 13th Part 7. Like she's somebody who is trying not to resist her abilities at the beginning of the film, because she has a positive connotation with her mom and being able to see her mom and stuff and not wanting to push that away. But by the end of the movie, it is this fucking nightmare for her. Like it's something that she can't escape. And the movie, again, another thing they kind of like fumble a little bit is the whole, I like that dance sequence where the Susie and the Banshee song, they go to they're wearing the like corpse paint and stuff. Like it's when she's talking to John there and she's freaking out. It's after they leave and she's like, I just want to be like everybody else. And he's like, I like that you're not like everybody else. Like there's a little bit of that where they're trying to lean into like, embrace who you are and what you're able to do. But it also is a movie. It's a mechanism that's she's at the mercy of the mechanism, as opposed to the other way around, where there's not a lot of agency that she has, which might play into some of the other criticisms, which I get. But I think again, it's one of those things too with like meeting the movie on its own terms, and it is a psychological horror movie. It's not a cool like fantasy action horror thing of like her hitting the streets and being a cool like badass psychic or whatever. Like she's very much at the mercy of it, and it fucks her up. And then there's still kind of a hint at the end. I don't know. I didn't view that as too sinister at the very end. I viewed it more as like, this will probably just kind of stay with her because it's part of who she is or whatever. But it is still, there's not a, yeah.
It could be read as being sinister if you wanted to, but I think you're right. I think that the idea is almost that, like, she was already seeing her mother's ghost. I think her experiences tapping into this kind of story of the 1960s in London, in Soho, probably legitimizes what we're seeing through her eyes. So it makes us believe more that she is actually seeing her mother's ghost and it's not some kind of mental illness. And then when we see Sandy at the end in the mirror, it is a bit of a shock, and it's played slightly as a surprise and a shock, but I kind of took it as being more kind of like, because there was almost a moment at the end where she accepts what she's done. She lets Ellie go. She says, go and save that boy. And she kind of sits down and resigns herself to her fate. And that almost feels, it's not necessarily redemptive so much as it's just, she drops any aggression or anger that she has towards Ellie and she lets her move on with her life. And then she's almost in the background there, kind of just keeping tabs, just making sure that Ellie succeeds in a way that she couldn't herself. That does bring me to something which I came to my own conclusion on this one. Everyone will be really glad to hear. I'm not a huge fan of the fact that Ellie gets her scholarship, goes to the London College of Fashion, and then basically copies the design of a dress that she sees in a dream. Because and not
that whole sequence to me did feel a little cute, where it was just kind of like, okay, everything where like but it's okay. It
just kind of takes something away from her as a character. It's like she got there on her own back, right? On her own ability. I'm guessing that the London University of Fashion isn't just like desperate for people to fill its numbers up. Like you have to right. do fairly well at something to get through to be accepted. But she turns up and the first thing she does is plagiarize a dress that she sees in her dreams, which can be argued one of two ways. You could argue that the events were events that happened, but she fills in the blanks with her own memories and inspiration and designs and imagination, right? So the dresses that Sandy is wearing, what everyone is wearing around her, could all be almost kind of a reflection of her own psyche and her own influences from 60s fashion, because she's very, very influenced by the 60s. I think the opening scenes of this movie very much lay that bare. But yeah, it kind of, the other way of looking at it is that she just has a window to the 60s and is like, I like the look of that dress, I'm going to copy it, which takes all of her agency away as a smart girl who earned her way into this college. And now, rather than using that ability to continue to excel at the college, is literally just using the psychic equivalent of ChatGPT to do her homework for her. Which, yeah, I'm not sure I would have reached that conclusion without, again, kind of like looking at this film with a slightly more critical eye. I still fucking love this movie. Don't get me wrong. I still really enjoy it. But yeah, that just kind of occurred to me and I was like, oh no.
I think it's you hear like Patrick H. Willems talking about a lot of like film Twitter, as they used to call it, talking about vibes movies. Like they bring up the Michael Mann Miami Vice a lot, and Tenet, and these movies that like you just kind of go for the ride, and it doesn't matter if things make sense or are well written out or thought out or whatever else. Like it's just about the ride. And this one is unfortunately, like, there are some clumsy moments, I think, that are a little bit more divisive, and probably for good reason. I think, like, it makes sense why that is, because you're dealing with topics that, aren't as easy as just being like, well, this doesn't really make sense from a screenwriting. Like, it's more that it's like, oh, this is kind of a big topic that you're sort of either being reductive about or minimizing, sidestepping, whatever. But I think ultimately at the end of the day, like, the strengths and the ultimate main sort of goal is achieved, which is the entire vibe of it, the entire style, and blending all of these different sort of genres and music and visual styles and everything else. They could have done less, and I say this a lot with other stuff where it's like, man, they didn't have to do this much with it. Like Predator Badlands, you didn't have to put that amount of great storytelling in it. It could have been less, and it still would have been this very fun, awesome thing. But it's elevated even more beyond just being a fun, schlocky thing, because you guys really took, it seriously in terms of the storytelling or the character moments or whatever else. This is one where I feel the same sentiment, but almost in the opposite direction, where it's like, you could have done less. It probably would have been more effective if it would have leaned into the exploitation, much more of a binary thing, as opposed to trying to add nuance or to try to add, like, that is where it then is clumsy, because there's not enough space for it. And the movie sings, no pun intended, when you're able to just lean into all of those different visual and stylistic elements, I think. And the actors are there. They're going to be good no matter what. Like, this is a stacked cast. So adding in some of those other wrinkles is to the film's detriment. But I think also if you're able to just kind of, dig the other stuff and meet it on the terms of it being flawed, but still, like, I would have loved if The Running Man had this dynamic for me, which sounds like I'm talking shit, but like that, when I say aggressively fine, like, I don't really have any massive criticisms of that movie where I would be like, this is really done poorly or whatever else. It's just, it never really, like, it could have used a lot more style. It had some, but it would have been tough for me if I would have watched that movie in a vacuum to guess that it was an Edgar Wright movie. Like, it didn't feel like a lot of the stuff that he usually, those levers and sliders true. That he'll move around in a way that in this movie, it's like, there's a lot of visual, awesome shit in this movie that I think elevates it up more than, just anyone else making this style of movie. The Running Man for me didn't have that. It was just kind of consistently like, here's the movie, Glenn Powell's running. I do. Sometimes there's guns.
Glenn Powell in a towel. Powell in a towel.
Yeah.
Favorite part of the movie, to be honest with you. I thought that was, like, ridiculous, but also pretty funny at the same time. Actually, something that I'm thinking back on The Running Man now, and then this movie, and then the Cornetto trilogy, and I'm trying to think of anything else that he did.
Baby Driver,
yeah. If you watched Hot Fuzz and then you watched this movie, and you told me that you knew for sure that it was the same director, you'd be fucking lying.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah, like he's got a very broad range, and I really appreciate that from him. What I want to do now is I want to be positive, and I know that's difficult for me. So I'm so I need your emotional support, guys. But there are a few things about the script writing that I wanted to draw special attention to, because I thought that they were actually very well done. The one that sticks in my mind clearest is when Ellie goes to the police station and she reports the fact that there was a murder. This too. And the fact that when she's getting a drink, I think it is, she's opposite the men's bathroom and the door is open and they're all taking the piss out of her. And it may be a slightly heavy-handed way of doing it, but in an era where we are always saying, please believe victims, I think that was a very effective scene in showing how women can feel when I mean, she's not even reporting firsthand. She's reporting a secondhand crime that happened to someone else. And she still feels like she isn't being believed. She's being belittled. And you have that female police officer that kind of pulls her to one side, and she's like, look, not much I can do, but like, I want you to be safe. Like, I want to believe you, you know. It was just that it was one of those scenes that I was watching it and I didn't think much of it the first time round. I don't think I mentioned it in the original review. It didn't really occur to me at the time. But again, I've grown, I guess. I shouldn't say that so fucking dismissively. Like I've got new life experiences since the last time I've seen it, and
yeah, I liked that too.
Kind of occurred to me.
And you mentioned John earlier too. Like I think he's a pretty strong.
That was going to be a
character in the. Yeah, he is very kind and considerate to her and present for her. Like he doesn't give up on her, and he. Especially when, man, I would have enjoyed a comeuppance moment for that, her roommate at the beginning. I was waiting for that the whole movie, where it's like, when is she finally going to snap on this girl? Unfortunately, she does by accidentally almost stabbing her in the face with some scissors or whatever it is. But
her reaction was great as well. Like, that was amazing. Like,
very in tune with her.
Fuck.
Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely, you know, strong moments, I think, throughout. And the again, even as I wasn't necessarily dismissive of it earlier, but just even though it also is a little clumsy too, I keep using that adjective. The stuff with Terrence Stamp's character I thought was interesting. Is like in a different movie where they had more space for some of that stuff, that would have been a really interesting subplot. In the movie, it's done in kind of a very horror exploitation-y way of like, you know, she is increasingly convinced that she's right, and it leads to him getting killed. And then the reveal is that, no, he wasn't this guy. In fact, he was, you know, this other thing. And it's supposed to be this sort of like gut punch, especially for her like mental sort of breakdown that she's having little by little.
The only problem I have with
I like that. I mean,
the only problem I have with his death is where the fuck did that taxi come from?
Yeah, that's one of those moments. That's a trope in movies now that I struggle. Like, you have to really nail it well, because 9 times out of 10, I feel like when that happens in a movie, you can feel it coming. And then also because you can feel it coming, there's part of you that's just like already looking at angles, and it's like they're in the middle of the street. Like I've been in the middle of the street when a car is coming, unless I have fucking headphones in or something. Like you're gonna notice, you're gonna feel like you're gonna notice, like people are gonna honk.
I was just waiting for the taxi driver to say he came out of nowhere, and I'm like, no, he didn't, but you bastard. He was he was stood in the middle of the road for literally like 30 seconds before you hit him. What the actual fuck are you talking about? On the car related theme, and going back to John, there's a couple of jokes that are made about him living in South London, and one of them was he gets her in the car, and they're driving somewhere. He drops her off at the bedsit to pick up her stuff before she leaves, and she says, "I didn't know that you had a car." And he said, "Well, how else do you think I'm going to get to North London from South London?"
Yeah,
like, you know, and it's just like, for anyone that has used the underground system in London and knows just how awful things are north of. Hang on a second. See, I'm trying to remember myself now. South London is fucking terrible for underground infrastructure, depending on where you are. If you're next to a station, then you're fine, but it's not quite as good as other parts of London are, and north of the river especially is a lot better. That's where most of the infrastructure really came in. But yeah, like, I enjoyed that joke, and there's a couple of jokes that they make about him being from South London, which I just chuckled at. I was like, yeah, this is fun. This is written by someone that has that kind of sense of humour. They know London well enough.
Oh yeah,
and then
that was also an element that was fun for me as an American, having not visited England yet, to be able to just sort of, like, it's English as fuck. Like, the movie is very, like, obviously from the name to the characters to the references, like, I assumed it felt authentic. just being who it was from, but that was an aspect that was fun. I think that pulled me in too, is just like it's saturated in a lot of the culture, even in both eras, the 60s and in the present day. And that was fun for me.
As Andy said, because I think annoyingly and ironically, the German is the one that has the best knowledge of Soho. But I have been to Soho a few times, and my geography isn't great, but it never felt like one of those movies. Like there was a Mission Impossible movie in the last few years that was set in London, and I went to watch it with my dad, and he was in the Met Police for years, right? So he knows London. Like, you drop him anywhere in London and he'd have a fairly good chance of knowing where he was and how to get wherever he wanted to go. Not quite cabbie levels, but nearly. And there's a chase scene where inevitably Tom Cruise has to run from one place to another because it's a Tom Cruise movie. Of course he has to run. And he was like, that geography makes no sense. He's taken a left there and he's ended up 5 miles away. What the fuck is going on? And it's just, it's your typical like filmmaking thing. Is like most filmmakers are well aware that people aren't going to be familiar enough with a city like London to know when you've done a jump cut from Soho to Kensington. Or, I mean, they're probably right next to each other. So you can see my knowledge of London geography is absolutely fantastic, and I'll be getting my knowledge tomorrow. But Andy, as someone that is probably more familiar with Soho than I am, how did the geography feel like it held together? Because you mentioned earlier that having been to Soho like once every few years, that you felt like you knew these streets that they were showing.
I don't really know the geography. You can drop me anywhere in London. I don't know where I'm going, but just I know they shot there, so it is Edgar Wright's neighborhood in a way. And in your Mission Impossible example, it was just about this is England, this is London. It doesn't care which part of London Tom Cruise actually runs around, and if around the corner is a completely different part of London. The movie is called Last Night in Soho. Yeah, people in England, especially in London, would notice if it wasn't authentic and if those street corners weren't actually in Soho. I mean, the Toucan exists. That pub is real. And many of those street corners. And I do recognize, because I looked up where the Toucan was or is, and I know, I've been to that park. So towards the end of the movie, when Thomas and Mackenzie is running around some corners, I know I've been in those streets. I've been to that park. I've seen that part of of London. And when we go to Gosh Comics, that's in Soho. So when you pass the pubs and those streets. So I don't necessarily know in every scene of the movie exactly that house and that door and that street corner, but just those types of streets, the kind of the neighborhood that it is, I do recognize. So I don't know if there might be some inconsistencies in you don't really get from that corner to that corner in a minute. I couldn't speak.
No, that's
to
cool. I mean, again, my geography is not that great either. Like, I nearly got us lost in Soho, and I had Google Maps on the go at the time. So, like, this is the level we're talking about with my geographical abilities. I can't even read Google Maps properly at times. But no, it definitely, like, it takes advantage of the setting for sure. And I was kind of hoping that I might see Gosh Comics in the background at one point, but it didn't happen. I was disappointed.
Andi, we've been talking the entire time. Do you have any thoughts or stuff to add before we do double feature picks?
I don't know. Criticisms on that essay. That's. I took more notes on the essay than I took on the movie, but I had seen the movie before. I don't know if that's any help to anyone if I start ranting about that half hour that I'd spent watching that essay. Let me just, because I hinted at it before that I wasn't a big fan of that essay, and I don't want to leave an impression without giving some context what I didn't enjoy about the essay.
Sure.
Okay.
As I said, I did take notes. So it feels to me that she starts her essay with saying something like, well, Jordan Peele made Get Out and it was it was great and people liked it and it was super successful. So we got a bunch of movies trying to ride Jordan Peele's coattails. That's a phrase that she uses. So that she makes statements about the movies that she's going to talk about from her perspective, like facts. And she says, "Well, I'm going to talk about a bunch of shitty movies," and that's for me not a great starting point to come at these movies with that kind of, I don't know, attitude. Just posing these are movies that try to be as great as Get Out, and they're shit. And I'm going to tell you that they are shit, not necessarily why they're shit. And I get her perspective on the movie, and I think David made a great job of pointing out some things about the criticism without even having watched that essay that I would have also talked about. Like, she has this one perspective on these movies. These are movies about abuse of women, and they do a shit job at talking about the abuse of women, as if that is the only thing that these movies try to do. And she states it like that's the thing that these movies are about. She talks about nothing but the script. She recognizes that Krysty Wilson-Cairns is a woman and was a co-writer on the script, but then she only talks about Edgar Wright and what he does wrong in the movie, and she says it like he was basically he was the problem. He was in the way of Krysty Wilson-Cairns having a better movie to her name. She says she co-wrote the script, but everything that's wrong with the movie is Edgar Wright's fault. She poses that just like a fact. And it seems like she hated Edgar Wright beforehand anyways. I got a big impression. I called it snark and scream, the style that she presented this essay in, which I was not a fan of. She does things like, and I'm trying to recreate it. She does things like this. She has a bow, a bit, because she's a gift to men. It's a metaphor. I hate when people do that.
It's very YouTube. Yeah, it's a very YouTube thing.
I'm not going to lie. I enjoyed that.
She says things like, we know she's loaded because she's able to move into this apartment and buy this coat. And I don't know why that's something important. And because, I don't know, irked me. Edgar Wright was trying to make woke Suspiria. Why would you do that when Black Christmas exists? The spiking the drink. That was one of my favorite moments in the essay, when she gets agitated about why Edgar Wright made a woman spike a woman's drink. We don't know that drink was even spiked, but she states it as a fact that a woman spiked Ellie's drink. And it's not a fact. The movie doesn't say that the drink was spiked. It is insinuated by the police that the drink could have been spiked.
Oh, at the party. Yeah. And then she flashes back to it. Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, you're right.
And a bunch of like tiny things like that. Or
I viewed that as just as it not being I viewed it as exactly that you don't know. But and her flashing back to thinking about that moment, to me it was a positive thing, in the sense of like it's showing how the thing I was talking about before. It's showing how a lot of times the cops, authorities, whatever, will introduce doubt in victims' own minds. So she's doubting herself, even though she's like, well, I know I wasn't, like, this was this thing that's actually really happening to me. But I can't say for sure that she didn't, so I guess I have to, like, I viewed it as like it didn't happen. Like I thought you were talking about the very end of the movie, and I was like, I thought it does show her spike the drink, but you're talking about at the party.
Yeah, at the party, exactly. Yeah, it's true.
I know what you're saying. Yeah. I'm gonna watch the essay. That is something I struggle with too. Of like essay, like if you're gonna do an essay, a video essay especially, like I'm much more interested in hearing something that you've done research on, as opposed to like, it's okay if you're going off on like a rant because of stuff that you didn't like, and it's subjective. But you have to make sure that that's presented in a way that it's like, this is not supposed to be facts. Like these aren't like facts that I have researched and have a stat. Like here's the proof. Here's what's said. Here's what this person said. Once you have those elements of it, you don't even have to necessarily. Your argument's going to make itself in a lot of ways. So when it's not that, when it is a like, I hated this for these reasons, that's okay. It's just it's a pet peeve of mine for sure, where it's not. I think you have a responsibility to present it that way. Otherwise, because it also makes it difficult for when people disagree for it to feel as anything other than like, you know, you've already put them in a place of like, well, if you disagree, then you think these things. And it's like, no, I just disagree with your take. Like, I don't think it's that simple. Anyway, I haven't watched the essay, so I'm not really taking a...
Yeah, I mean, it felt to me when watching the essay that it wasn't that she was saying the entire movie is bad because this. It was more a case of like, look, this is the specific angle at which I'm approaching these movies, and they fail at this particular
she has a
thing
bigger
because
point
of
to
this,
make.
this, and this. And the overarching sentiment seemed to be that it's aggravating that people are trying to make movies that make points about things and do such a bad job of it that it just kind of it doesn't really help at all. It's just kind of like, I'm making a movie about this because I understand that it happens.
She didn't feel nuanced to me at all. She didn't talk about anything but this one point with these movies. I mean, she started out with the movie Men and said, this is the least egregious of these. And then when she comes to Edgar Wright, maybe she even audibly sighed that she now has to talk about this movie that is so shit. And I don't know, it didn't feel like a proper analysis to me, just like a rant about movies that didn't make the point that she wanted them to make by stating that these movies wanted to make that point, which I would argue Last Night Soho does not set out to be a documentary about female abuse in London.
No, that's true. But I still think that some pertinent points are made in the essay, despite the direction that it was coming from. Like, there's a very good line that she brings up. Hang on a second. I'm just going to my notes. The lack of dimensionality in Sandy, which I alluded to earlier. She would say, like, so this is a direct quote. I wrote it down. Sandy has no dimensionality outside of being abused. She's there to be pretty, be exploited and die, so a college student doesn't have sex with her boyfriend, which, you know, someone who had done any research might have known. One of the reasons why survivors of any gender choose not to speak up is because having their trauma relitigated and scrutinised, almost being reduced to the pain that someone else inflicted upon you, can be goddamn dehumanising. What actually happens is that Sandy has her trauma relitigated and scrutinised in such a way that she's reduced to the pain being inflicted upon her by both the characters and the film in general. Which I thought was a really good point, actually, because until you get to the point where Diana Rigg is able to get her teeth into it, she does feel kind of lightweight as a character. Like, you see horrible things happening to her, but you're seeing it through the eyes of Thomasin McKenzie, and it's almost like you're watching a replay of it. So already, because you feel like you're watching a shadow of something that's already happened, that kind of takes a little bit of emotional weight from it. And then you're seeing it through Thomasin McKenzie's eyes, and you're kind of thinking, like, you're almost concentrating as much on the effect it's having on Ellie as a character as you are on Sandy. And yeah, it's just I felt that was a very good point about the relitigation and the revisiting of trauma. And I think good points are made.
I see what you're
good points are made.
Presented to me that as a proper analysis and not screaming at me why she's angry at Edgar Wright for making a shit movie.
She didn't scream that part. That part was very cogently.
She did not scream. She did scream several times. Maybe not these exact lines, but the style of her essay, like, I mean, it is not. It is just not a calm analysis of a movie, pointing out this is what the movie succeeds at, this movie does not succeed at. She's angry from the beginning of her essay at these movies for doing something that she doesn't like.
Which I think that's what I was saying earlier too. I think is fine. I think that's like, and I don't think you're saying that it's not. I think it's the way that you then approach delivering these ideas or whatever. Like it can be a blog style rant, like a long thing, but it can also, you just have to kind of, I think, distinguish, because a lot of the stuff you said from that quote I don't necessarily disagree with, but a lot of them I also at the same time I'm like, yeah, but the movie's not doing that thing. I'm not defending the movie or excusing it or anything else, because I think a lot of the criticisms that she has in that particular piece that you read I don't necessarily disagree with in some ways, but my source of going to that wouldn't be, oh, they fucked up at this thing and they did this, like, this is the message this movie is sending. I would just be like, it's clumsy. Like, there's not enough there, and that's the problem, is that there's not enough there. But it doesn't
which
mean...
is why I still enjoy the movie. Like, I acknowledge the clumsiness and I move past it, and yeah.
That, to me, doesn't equate that they are then making this statement. Like, it's clumsy and easy to find fault because of how it's not really handled. That's another that whole thing with, like, her being reduced to the Sandy's character of this victim of trauma, everything else. Like, yeah, part of the problem with that, like, I don't necessarily disagree with your point, but also you're ignoring the fact that the movie is hiding the twist. So the movie, for a lot of it, is intentionally constructed so that you think that she's dead, and that she is reduced to this thing that's part of Ellie's entire, like, conflict in the movie, is she's constantly wrong because she's seeing things and having these assumptions and these expectations of what happened, and they're not exactly right. She thinks that Jack is still alive and that it's was it Terrence Stamp? She thinks that Sandy is dead, but she's not. Like, the movie is intentionally obfuscating and stuff. Does it do that stuff well? Not really. Like, it's not it's not very well executed, but it doesn't, I think, to equate some of that stuff with, and these are the things that the movie is doing or the statements that are making, it's one of those things where it's like, it feels like you're more reaching to the point for your own argument as opposed to actually looking at what the movie's doing. There's plenty of there to critique, I think, and to dive into.
But then maybe I'm misunderstanding what you're saying there. But what I would argue in defence of the essay is that the essay isn't looking to talk about the merits and the downfalls of 3 separate movies and a video game. It's looking to make a point, an overall point, about how these things can be done wrong when talking about a specific thing, which in this case, Man Bad Horror. And so it won't talk about how the 60s is rendered fantastically and, the ballroom looks resplendent, and how there are several other aspects of the film and the plot that are done well, and there are characters that are wonderfully drawn, and Jocasta is a terrible name for a character, but actually that girl exists everywhere that you live. Like, she's not going to dial down into every single movie, every single point, because there's 4 different pieces of media here that are all being used to serve to prove a specific point. It's a style of essay which isn't going to work for everyone. Like Patrick H. Willems will do an entire essay about one movie, and he will deconstruct everything and talk about almost every single aspect of the movie. And and that's not all he does. He does a whole range of stuff, as we all well know. But like, this is a specific essay about a specific thing, and I'm not saying that that's something that no one else understands. It's like, I am an intellectual and I get this, but I'm just saying
that was my point
think,
earlier. I think she's arrived at her. To me, I'm going to watch the essay today because I'm like also speaking from a place of just not having watched it, which is not fair to the essay or the argument as a whole. Based off of the stuff that she picked that you've listed, I would say this would just be a situation where it feels like she picked this movie because she didn't like it, and it doesn't do some of the things well that help support her argument. I would counter with, like, it makes sense to me that Men is on that list. I don't even know if she views it as positive or negative, but that movie is very much about this idea. That is the text. Like, that is the, that's what they're diving into. Again, that one would fall into a Lynn Ramsey sort of place of like, there's a lot of dream logic. There's a lot of fucking
She's not complimentary
about
any of the 3 films, but Mouthwashing gets a pass. Just so, so that you're aware.
That to me makes more sense on the list because that is the text, and whether it succeeds or fails, whatever. To me, Last Night in Soho being a part of that would feel a little bit more flimsy, more so because the movie, it's not the focus, and also it's not supposed to be like, it is one of a bunch of things that, are juggling, and some of them do well, some of them don't. To use it as like part of it, to me, seems a little bit like, well, okay, sure. Like, it does support your overall argument with some of these things, but also like it's tough when I've seen people that fall on the other side of this. I think it's easy to fall into it when you do like something, to be like, well, the movie is intentionally doing this thing badly or whatever. I think you could fall into that trap. I've brought up that guy that I got into an argument one time in the Shockwaves Movie Club Facebook page years ago, where he was defending that Ted Gagan, I think is how you pronounce his name, movie that I didn't like, most people didn't like, and he was like, well, he's intentionally making it poorly as a throwback. And it's like, I don't think so, man. Like, you're going a little bit step too far. I think with this one, it's a thing where it's like, nah, it's just, there's not enough there. And so I don't know, I'm talking in circles too. I definitely, video essays are a unique, weird thing anyway. One of the reasons I love H. Bomber Guy so much and his essays are that some of his essays are about video essays, and he goes into, usually more focus on plagiarism and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it is especially with YouTube, it is this kind of like, there's no rules. There's no like, structure that you have to adhere to. It only comes down to your own approach. And I think to me, that's why it's a thing where it's like someone like Willems resonates with me more. And again, I haven't watched this essay. Maybe I'll watch this essay and love her channel and subscribe. Like, I'm not, writing her off by any means. But speaking of ones that I am more familiar with, Willems, one of the things that one of the reasons he resonates with me is that his stuff seems very meticulously researched and nuanced and going into stuff. And when he is critical in a more kind of ranty, screamy way, it's clear that we're off in sort of a tangent of like, it's played for comedic purposes or whatever else, which even from the brief bit that I watched of her, I felt that was clear. Like the screamy, ranty stuff. I know what Andi's saying. I also know what you're saying. Like, it's not my favorite YouTube delivery method, but I forget her name now. I got onto her videos a bunch. I loved them. Jenny Nicholson, I think is her name. She did like a 4-hour video essay on the experience. She does a lot of theme park stuff. So she did one about the Galaxy's Edge Star Wars theme park that they did. That was that like massive disaster failure. It was super expensive. Yeah. And she has that sort of style at times. And I can see the merits of how it works as a style. So I'm not begrudging that by any means. I don't think that it's one is better than the other. I think obviously preference is going to come into play, but I do think that they are two different kind of paths. And so in this case, it feels like she probably had an overall frustration about this thing that she keeps seeing. And this was one movie that didn't resonate with her for a lot of those reasons. I think it's a little less shaky to use as an example, just because, it's not written the best. And also there's stuff in the movie that I think you can only kind of criticize to only so much, because if the movie isn't even trying to do that thing, then to be like, well, it failed. It's like, based off of what metric? If it's not trying to do that thing, then does it fail if it didn't do that thing? Like, it's I struggle a lot too in similar ways with, criticisms of people, and I'm not saying she's doing this, but in other, like, it comes up with Craig Zoller movies a lot, where it's like, well, he must be a right-wing Republican racist piece of shit because he wrote these Republican right-wing racist piece of shit cops and Dragged Across Concrete. And my argument is like, he wrote those characters. That doesn't mean he is this thing, or that there's certain, like, again, not saying she's doing this, but if there's an intentionality to what's happening or a lack thereof, then drawing big conclusions from it sometimes feels like a stretch, just because it's like, well, okay, I see what you're saying, but I also don't think the movie was trying to do that. One of the biggest things I took away when I say briefly went to college, I graduated from college. I went the whole thing, I guess. But in a lot of those film classes, there would be both good and bad examples of professors that would say like, oh, well, you know, in your short film that we all just watched, like, it would have been really effective if your character would have done this thing. And that always irked me, because it was like, well, that's not what happened, though. So talk about it on the merits of what they did. And if there's something that doesn't make sense, if there's if there's something to where you can say, I was confused by this thing, I don't think you tied these things together well enough. If there's actual valid criticism, that's valuable. But telling me, and no one ever told me, this makes it sound like I'm bitter and I'm jaded about something that a professor said to me 15 years ago. This didn't happen to me. I would see it to other people a lot, and it would drive me crazy, because it was like, yeah, but they didn't do that. So why are you criticizing them on not doing this thing that they clearly had no intention of doing? Grade it based off of what they did. If, and in my opinion here, parts of Last Night in Soho like floundered because of that, call that shit out. Like, I think that this movie has flaws with the script, but ultimately to go beyond that and be like, well, they didn't do enough with this, I agree, but also the movie wasn't trying to do that. I don't think, in my opinion. It's all subjective. It's all art. Like, and I understand even from the brief clip that I saw, her frustration with a lot of these tropes, I totally understood. Like, I get that. Like, at least from the perspective of, like, especially when you see them happening over and over again in movies, like getting to the point where you're like, I got to write a piece about this. I got to do an essay, whatever. Like, that makes total sense. So yeah, I think it's just kind of a stylistic choice.
Yeah. I think, it hangs together a lot better as a whole, because, you know, the introduction will kind of explain what her criteria are for the movies that she's going to be talking about, what qualifies as man, bad, horror, etc. And then I don't know. I feel like the context of one into the other and then the other, because like the first two, obviously Men and Last Night in Soho, both being male directors, but then you go to Don't Worry Darling, which was Olivia Wilde's movie. And like she says before going into it, so the solution clearly is to just have more women tell stories about their experiences and make movies about this kind of thing, right? And then straight into Olivia Wilde's movie directorial debut or whatever it was. So like, you know, there's, I think that in general, the whole thing is probably, as well as the tone of it and the style of it, it's a tone and style which is, you know, everyone's got their own. Some can be very dry, very academic. Others can be a lot more lighthearted and unserious, and use kind of like, you know, hard cuts and things like that. And I think that Infinite Snow Productions definitely got its own style. Started off with a couple of movies about Miyazaki and Lupin the Third, and then went into other stuff after that fact. And so I think the style of the of the essays is kind of informed by those first couple and stays consistent. And so sometimes when you're tackling other subjects, it might feel a little incongruous, but I think ultimately, like, I gel with it more because I know what to expect from an Infinite Snow essay. So I'm just like, what are we talking about this month? Oh, cool. Okay, we're talking about the many disastrous versions of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Let's go. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, and I think too, like that's. It's such that tracks for me, absolutely. I think like in a lot of ways that we will resonate with like talk show hosts, radio people, podcasters, where it's like, yeah, I don't agree or necessarily think that they are perfect in every single point or argument they make, but I like the overall vibe, and I usually like their insights, even if I don't agree every single time. the energy that they're bringing to this, the passion that they have for it, that resonates, and that totally tracks. I think that makes total sense. I'm looking forward to watching the essay.
Yeah. Nobody has to agree with absolutely everything that everyone else thinks and says, but I think the key is just to, as we always try to be, just, be respectful of it. And if we have criticisms, to try and be constructive in them. And, I think we've done that.
Yeah, I think so.
Are we done with Last Night in Soho again?
I think so. I think Soho. Any other big thoughts?
I'm good. Yeah. I love the movie.
All right, let's do some. let's kick us off with a double feature pick, Andi.
No, you don't.
Clear enough.
No, that was clear from the
video
beginning.
Essayists, and I hate women in general.
No, you don't, Andy. I've met your wife.
What's your double feature pick, Andi?
So, on our first episode on Last Night in Soho, I picked Peeping Tom. As a double feature pick.
Oh yeah,
we have done an episode on British movie about a serial killer who kills women the movie came out in 1960, so it's not quite in the 60s, especially not the 60s that we think about when talking about London in the 60s, swinging London, all that stuff. But still, the architecture, the apartment. In the flat in the house upstairs and things like that, but this time, so just to reiterate what I picked last time, as a movie I still would pick Peeping Tom, but I talked about the book Funny Girl earlier, that Nick Hornby's novel that I read immediately after having seen Last Night in Soho the last time, a movie that I had bought when it came out, and as many books as we all do, stayed on the shelf waiting for its moment. And then I read it in that period when I immersed myself in 60s England. And a great book. I love Nick Hornby's books. I've read most of them, not quite all of them, but I think most of them. Big fan of his writings. And Funny Girl was a absolutely enjoyable book. So that's my double feature pick.
Nice. Dave, what you got?
So even though I re-listened to our episode, I must have dozed off before the final wrap-up, because I can't remember what I picked last time either. I wouldn't be surprised if I picked the same thing I'm going to pick this time. Let me tell you guys about John Christie, a guy from the UK, born in 1899, who was a serial killer and serial rapist, active during the 40s and 50s. So he murdered lots of people and hid them in his house and in his garden. When he was eventually caught, they found remains of 3 victims in his kitchen. They found 2 under the floorboards and 2 in the garden. And they made a movie about it in 1971 called 10 Rillington Place, starring Richard Attenborough. Not only am I picking this because of the fact that they had bodies in the walls, but also because, as I mentioned with Matt Smith and his ability to be a lovely boy or a piece of shit, depending on what the role requires, I think Richard Attenborough equally is capable of that kind of performance. And he's capable of the latter in this one, and the former in almost every other movie he was ever in, whether it be, was it Miracle on 32nd Street? Or Jurassic Park, or, whatever movie you want to name that he was in. But yeah, I'm going to go for 1971's 10 Rillington Place, directed by Richard Fleischer.
Nice. I'm going to be kind of boring, and it also sounds like maybe not a favorable comparison, because it sounds like it was name-checked in the essay, but I thought a lot about Suspiria watching this. I'm sure the fashion part of it, but then also just the girl arriving in a new place and, psychological sort of stuff going on, the dynamics and the school and the backdrop. I thought about Suspiria a few different times watching this movie. So also maybe the colors and the lighting, all that.
And
not the
this
most
one was
pick,
literally called Woke Suspiria by...
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, I'll go with that. And I'm picking the Argento one, but if you want to pick the newer one, pick that one too. I like that one quite a bit. I thought it was good. Or the remake, I should say. All right, cool. Listeners, let us know what you thought of Last Night in Soho or the essay or any of the stuff we've talked about. We went off in all kinds of directions this episode. EerieInternational@gmail.com if you want to send some longer form thoughts. I suspect, too, probably a lot of people haven't watched this one. It seems like either people had a take or just did not get to it, which was the case for me. So, watch it this week and let us know what you thought if you would like to hit us up. In the meantime, stay safe out there, keep watching horror movies, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.